Chapter 2191. Last high. Back in the ancient past, Blood Emperor was one of the top-tier experts. Even though he could not be compared to a man like Emperor 13, he had still heard of the techniques Emperor 13 had. Emperor 13 had created 3 strongest sword skills. World of Swords was the weakest among them. Even this weakest sword skill could have severely injured or even killed him back in the ancient past. The legendary World of Sword had everything inside: mountains, seas, and forests made up of swords. However, the World of Swords that Emperor 13 had cast only barely formed an incomplete sea of swords. Haha. Blood Emperor laughed crazily. Mountain River Map, the 7th seal of the 9-province seal together with the World of Sword, haha. Come. Why would I be afraid? Blood Emperor looked like he had turned crazy under the suppression of the 7th seal and the surrounding sea of swords. Blood Emperor felt that his life was in danger when targeted by the 7th seal. It was as though in the next moment he was about to be crushed into nothing by the 7th seal. However, the Blood Emperor was not afraid at all. He was the emperor of the Blood Clan and had been one of the top-tier experts back in the ancient past. He had been through the great battle of the ancient past and survived. What could be more dangerous and terrifying than that battle itself? Taboo secret skill, Blood slash. First slash. Blood Emperor's voice boomed as the divine power around him boiled and roared. Blood Emperor shuddered as his face turned pale. Second slash. His voice could be heard again as the surrounding sea of crimson red split apart. The spirits and skeletons under the sea of crimson red crumbled. Blood Emperor felt something get stuck in his throat before he spouted out blood. Third slash. Boom. Heaven and earth froze for a second. Blood Emperor was covered in blood. One of his army exploded and turned into a mist of blood. Blood Clan taboo secret skill. Emperor 13's irises constricted with shock. Even though Blood Emperor looked like he was severely injured, Emperor 13 clearly knew he was not. Blood Emperor was in that state due to the price he had to pay to cast the taboo secret skill. Even though the cost was huge, Blood Emperor had turned even stronger. Opposing blood formation, form. Under the influence of the taboo secret skill, Blood Emperor, who was in the divine demon realm, had turned even stronger. His terrifying aura had become twice as powerful. The opposing blood formation that encompassed the entire 3 Emperors world started to run. A limitless amount of blood chi gathered in front of the Blood Emperor and formed a crimson shield. This shield looked as though it could not be destroyed. Haha, come. Blood Emperor laughed crazily. He stood behind the large shield as a gigantic crimson exotic beast rose and roared. High up in the air, the province formed from the 7th seal came down with incredible might. It collided with the crimson red shield. Boom. Large amounts of momentum gushed out in all directions. The 7th seal. Jian Wushuang gave all he had, crumbling 9 ancient god stars and even casting soul ignition to bet on this one attack. This was Jian Wushuang's last attack. After this attack, he would definitely die. Blood Emperor had paid a heavy price by casting the taboo secret skill just to defend against the 7th seal. He knew that this was the last attack by Jian Wushuang. This was the last chance for Jian Wushuang to kill him. As long as Blood Emperor survived the attack, he could return back to his prime with the help of the opposing blood formation. The plan he had carefully planned for a long time could continue. No one could stop him. He must die. Jian Wushuang had gone crazy long ago. As soul ignition continued, his consciousness slowly started to fade as he turned into a mad demon. He would die eventually as all living energy would be sucked out of him. He told himself he had a mission, and he had to complete it before he died. That was to kill Blood Emperor. The eternal chaotic world would only be safe if he died. That was his hometown. His friends and families were there. He could not afford to fail. I carefully schemed for so many years and finally got to where I am today. How can I lose to a mere chaotic realm scum? No, that will not happen. That cannot happen. I will not die. Blood Emperor was equally crazy. Jian Wushuang had his reason to kill the Blood Emperor. Blood Emperor also had his reasons to live. Both of them fought head-on. Who would live? Who would die? Or would both of them die? The experts from the eternal chaotic world held their breath as they saw this scene unfold before their eyes. They saw the majestic province crashing into the Crimson Shield. These two terrifying and devastating forces were fighting against each other. At that moment, everyone clenched their fists. Kill him. He must die. Sword Emperor, our fate lies in your hands. The Sword Emperor has never disappointed us. This time, he too will not disappoint us. These were thoughts that were screaming in the minds of the experts. They knew that Jian Wushuang was their last hope. This attack was Jian Wushuang's last attempt. If Blood Emperor survived this attack, the eternal chaotic world would be done for. At the center of the battlefield, the two terrifying forces were still battling it out. During the collision, the power of both forces got weaker. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. This collision lasted for 5 seconds. Finally, crack, a soft sound was heard. The eyes of the experts from the eternal chaotic world lit up with elation. They saw cracks forming on the seemingly indestructible crimson-red shield. Finally, the crimson-red shield shattered with a boom. The crimson-red shield that Blood Emperor formed using the opposing blood formation was gone. Chapter 2192. A figure broke. The crimson shield broke. Sword Emperor managed to break the opponent's strongest defense skill. Is he going to succeed? The experts from the eternal chaotic world were excited. No, it is not so simple. Even though this attack is extremely powerful, more than 70% of the power was used to break the Crimson Shield. Blood Emperor may be able to defend against the remaining power. He could be severely injured, but not killed. Emperor Bai said. What? The experts around turned pale. Even after destroying the Crimson Shield, Blood Emperor could survive this attack? Oh no. It still lacks some power. Emperor 13-2 frowned. At the center of the battlefield, the seventh seal continued to descend on Blood Emperor. Blood chi continued to erupt from Blood Emperor as the ancient blood beast roared in anger. The Blood Emperor laughed. Come, let's see if the remaining power from the seventh seal can kill me today. If I survive, all of you will die. Ha ha ha. His crazy laughter reverberated throughout the battlefield. The huge ancient blood beast held up its hands and held on tightly to the descending province. The majestic province descended extremely slowly under the resistance from the ancient blood beast. During the entire process, its power was continuously weakened. If this continued, the seal would not be able to kill the Blood Emperor after it destroyed the ancient blood beast. Sword Emperor gave his all and even cast soul ignition, yet he still failed to kill Blood Emperor. Is the eternal chaotic world done for? Looks like fate decided that the eternal chaotic world should perish today. Howls of bitterness could be heard from the experts from the eternal chaotic world. These experts had no hope left. Even Emperor Bai looked devastated. Jian Wushuang was their last hope. However, this last attack of his did not seem like it could kill Blood Emperor. As for Emperor 13, he could not kill Blood Emperor even though he had incredible fighting power. If Blood Emperor survived, that meant that they were dead meat. The eternal chaotic world was done for. Many different emotions surfaced. At the center of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang turned even more crazy as he lost his consciousness. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared straight at Blood Emperor. Right then, in the majestic province in front of him, a human figure appeared slowly. This figure appeared out of nowhere with no warning at all. The power of the seventh seal was about to run out, yet a figure had appeared from within at this point in time. Once it appeared, everyone looked over at it. That is. The experts from the eternal chaotic world were stunned as they looked at the figure. It was a well-built man in white clothes. He was smiling brightly and warmly. It felt peaceful. He appeared out of nowhere and had no aura. It was like he was nothing but air. Once people looked at him, they could no longer look away. When he saw the figure who appeared out of nowhere, Blood Emperor frowned. He started to feel uncertain as the bad feeling turned even stronger. Emperor 13-2 was looking at this human figure. This old man. He has got a backup plan. Emperor 13 muttered to himself in a voice only he could hear. As for Jian Wushuang, he was using all his strength to keep himself conscious. At the same time, he recognized this figure who had appeared. Mars. Master. Jian Wushuang spoke with great difficulty. Master. Jian Wushuang had only had one master since the day he had started cultivating. This man was Xian Yi. Hi, little one. Xian Yi smiled and greeted Jian Wushuang. The warm smile caused Jian Wushuang to feel relaxed. Xian Yi then looked down at everyone. When he saw Emperor 13, a glint of surprise flashed over his eyes, as he quickly moved his vision. Finally, he fixed his vision on Blood Emperor. A member of the Blood Clan? Haha. This formation is interesting. It is a pity that this is too malicious. Xian Yi muttered to himself. At the same time, he noticed the 7th seal of the 9-province seal. There was only about 20% of power left in this seal. With this power, it could severely injure Blood Emperor. However, there was no way it could kill Blood Emperor. My disciple, your master shall help you today. Xian Yi said as he raised one of his arms slowly. On his right index finger, a special energy gathered as it flew towards Blood Emperor. It felt like the energy did not exist at all. He pointed his finger very casually. The experts around the battlefield were curious as to why Xian Yi had done that. They did not understand what the figure was trying to do. He pointed his finger at Blood Emperor. What was next? Why was there no power or momentum felt? The 7th seal of the 9-province seal did not get more powerful. It seemed like nothing had changed. While everyone was curious about why Xian Yi had done that. Boom. The space shuddered. The heaven and earth that the experts were in started to crumble at an incredible speed. Yes, it crumbled. Large amounts of space started to collapse in on themselves. Even the earth started to sink. As for the opposing blood formation that covered the entire Three Emperors world, it started to quickly dissipate and shrink as though it was being suppressed by a terrifying power. Within moments, the opposing blood formation, which covered the entire Three Emperors world, shrank to the mere size of the Blood Emperor sanctuary grounds. And the shrinking had yet to stop. At the same time, a suppressive power far greater than what anyone had experienced before was felt. This non-specific suppressive power did not belong to any expert. It came from the heavens. It came from the earth. This suppressive power came from heaven and earth. It was the restrictions of heaven and earth. Chapter 2193 Finally killed. Impossible. This is not possible. The Blood Emperor yelled hysterically. At that moment, Blood Emperor went mad. As the restrictions of heaven and earth came, his opposing blood formation dissipated straight away. The reason why he could be in the chaotic divine demon realm was due to the opposing blood formation. If the formation dissipated, his power would too. He was originally in the chaotic divine demon realm, before dropping to half-step divine demon realm instantly. He was now in the realm as Emperor 13. As his realm dropped, his overall power and the power of his techniques dropped. Impossible. My opposing blood formation has already shaken this world. Everything was originally peaceful and I was in the chaotic divine demon realm. Why did the restrictions of heaven and earth increase so suddenly? Blood Emperor widened his eyes in shock as his face twisted in anger. Soon, he locked his vision onto the figure that had just appeared. You. This is all because of you. The Blood Emperor stared at Xian Yi, who stood there smiling. Blood Emperor's irises constricted when he recalled what Xian Yi had just done to influence the restriction of heaven and earth. He could guess his true identity. It's you. It is you. You were that man back then. That is you. The restrictions of heaven and earth exist because of you. Blood Emperor roared in anger as he was in disbelief. While the Blood Emperor was in disbelief, the majestic province descended and crushed the ancient blood beast. The ancient blood beast had been created by the ancient blood beast and its power was determined by that of the Blood Emperors. Blood Emperor had been in the chaotic divine demon realm before, hence the ancient blood beast was powerful. Now that the Blood Emperor was in the half-step divine demon, his power dropped and he could no longer cast many techniques. Under these circumstances, even Emperor 13 could kill him. This was the same for Jian Wushuang, who cast soul ignition and gave his all. As for the 7th seal of the 9-province seal, Only about 10% of the total power remained after it crushed the ancient blood beast. However, this power was more than enough to kill the Blood Emperor, who was in the half-step divine demon realm. No. I will not resign myself to my fate. I will not. His yells reverberated throughout the battlefield. The majestic province descended onto the Blood Emperor and completely crushed him. Boom. The terrifying momentum continued to push the province downwards onto the earth. Once the two collided, abundant amounts of divine power swept out in all directions. After a long while, the battlefield turned peaceful once again. As for Blood Emperor, he lay there motionless. A top-tier expert from the ancient past died. He is finally dead. The experts from the eternal chaotic world widened their eyes as they looked at this scene. They had yet to fully comprehend what had just happened. They could not believe their own eyes. Their defeat seemed inevitable. However, the tides of the battle had turned right when Blood Emperor was about to win. After a brief delay, everyone looked up at the two figures floating high up in the air. The two figures were Jian Wushuang and Xian Yi. After the seventh seal of the nine-province seal dissipated, they realized that Xian Yi was simply a blurred mirage. Whoosh! Xian Yi moved forwards towards Jian Wushuang. Little one. Xian Yi smiled warmly. Jian Wushuang could barely keep his eyes open. His consciousness was fading. Xian Yi frowned slightly. He stretched out his palm and pointed to Jian Wushuang's forehead. A unique energy gushed into Jian Wushuang's brain. Instantly, what remaining soul power that Jian Wushuang had stopped burning under the influence of this unique energy. His soul fire was extinguished and a very small portion of his soul power remained. Seeing this, Xian Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Little one, you are too tired. Sleep well. Xian Yi said softly. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, as though he had heard his master's words. It was a peaceful and relieved smile. Jian Wushuang fell backwards. Xian Yi waved his hand as an unknown force guided Jian Wushuang towards Emperor Bai. Emperor Bai caught Jian Wushuang and stared at Xian Yi with a meaningful look. Xian Yi smiled at Emperor Bai and muttered to himself, "The time is not yet right. It has yet to reach the decisive moment. Luckily, the amount of power I used is small. If not," he shook his head as his body turned transparent. It eventually disappeared from sight. Seeing this, the experts around were confused. They did not know who Xian Yi was, how he had appeared and why he had disappeared so suddenly. His appearance and disappearance were both without warning. In the eyes of the experts from the eternal chaotic world, Xian Yi was a complete mystery. Emperor 13 would probably be the only man who had the answer to this mystery. Whoosh! In the sky high up above, the beautiful picture scroll world disappeared as it turned into a scroll and fell towards the earth. A figure appeared and caught the mountain river map. This man was Emperor 13. Emperor 13 then appeared in front of Emperor Bai. How is he? Emperor 13 looked at Jian Wushuang's motionless body and asked. He is in a terrible state. Even though his divine body is unharmed, he has used too much of his soul power and only a small amount remains. He should fall into a deep slumber, Emperor Bai said in a serious tone. This phenomenon should only have appeared in the ancient past. Some experts from the ancient past had control and usage of powerful soul attacks which could severely wound the soul. If the soul was wounded to a certain extent, it would fall into a deep slumber. It was extremely difficult to wake up from this slumber. Even though he fell into deep slumber, at least his life was preserved. This is all thanks to that man just now who helped to stop soul ignition. If not, Emperor Bai exclaimed. Chapter 2194 Victory. The surrounding experts from the eternal chaotic world took a sharp breath when they heard what Emperor Bai had said. To them, once you cast soul ignition, you were destined for doom. There was no way to stop it. However, that man just now had managed to stop Jian Wushuang's soul ignition and protect a part of his soul. How incredible was that? Emperor 13 looked at Jian Wushuang before tossing the mountain river map and a transmission token over. This is his transmission token. Additionally, that is my transmission token. After he awakens from his deep slumber, ask him to message me, Emperor 13 said coldly. Emperor Bai received the two items. Since Jian Wushuang was in a deep slumber, he would safely keep these items first. Additionally, this is what I promised. Emperor 13 tossed him a jade bamboo strip. Emperor Bai caught it and took a glance. His eyes lit up in surprise. There was a secret skill carved into the jade bamboo strip. It was the complete version of one of the secret skills he was currently cultivating. Back at the lineage of Star, Emperor 13 had seen that Emperor Bai was cultivating an incomplete secret skill. He had told Emperor Bai that he would give him the complete version of the secret skill if Emperor Bai could take care of Jian Wushuang for a period of time. Thank you. Emperor Bai thanked Emperor 13. Emperor 13 looked at Emperor Bai indifferently before leaving. After Emperor 13 left, the experts from the eternal chaotic world surrounded Emperor Bai. Everyone was looking at Jian Wushuang. Sword Emperor. What happened to the ancient god Emperor? People like King Chen Xing, Abysmal Saint Master and Black Dragon Emperor were extremely worried. This was especially the case for Black Dragon Emperor, as her feelings for Jian Wushuang had never changed. Everyone calm down. Jian Wushuang's soul was wounded and he went into a deep slumber. As long as there are enough treasures, he can recover. It's just a matter of time. Emperor Bai said. Hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Emperor Bai, the master of the Holocaust sect, escaped, Ancestor Tian Chen said. Emperor Bai raised his eyebrows and looked at the space that she was in. The beautiful figure which was standing there disappeared. Let her go. She should be from the first era. Now that the three Emperor's world's factions are destroyed, I doubt she can cause any trouble for us, Emperor Bai said. Tian Chen, what are the losses we suffered during this battle? More than half were either severely injured or dead. 7 of our great emperors died in the battle. They are Purple Moon Emperor, Master Wu, Yang Zun, King Zhong Kang. Ancestor Tian Chen read out 7 names. These were the 7 emperors who had died in this battle. On top of that, many Sir Gods and Emperor Gods had died as well. The total number of lives lost was over 2,000. Hearing this, the experts present fell silent. Emperor Bai took a deep breath and said, "They are the heroes of the eternal chaotic world." Yes, heroes. They sacrificed their lives for the eternal chaotic world. Without their sacrifice, the eternal chaotic world would not be around now. The experts around nodded their heads in agreement. Even though we suffered heavy losses during this battle, we won, the eternal chaotic world laughed. Hearing this, the experts who were down were stunned for a moment before they started to smile. Victory. They were victorious. All of the experts from the 3 Emperors' world were dead. The 3 Emperors' world had crumbled and would no longer pose a threat to the eternal chaotic world. The Holocaust sect and the Akron Palace had been 2 threats that lurked in the dark. Now, these 2 threats were gone. Let's go. Let us go home. Everyone discussed for a moment before they cleaned up the battlefield and left for home. Eternal chaotic world. After the final phase of the war erupted, the eternal chaotic world was at the edge of destruction. The countless cultivators and humans that remained within the eternal chaotic world were unsteady and worried. After the army returned, news of the victory spread like wildfire. Victory. This war had cost the eternal chaotic world dearly, but they had eventually achieved the final victory. After the news spread, the entire eternal chaotic world was celebrating in ecstasy. Many people who had been worried sick finally heaved a sigh or relief. Green Fire World, within Wushuang City. Wushuang. Brother. Jian Nantian, Wang Yuan, Su Ru, and many others looked at the weak Jian Wushuang and were worried sick. The experts who had participated in this war were mainly from the eternal chaotic world, as Green Fire World only had one almighty, Jian Nantian. He was far too important to the Green Fire World and did not participate in this war. Emperor Bai, how is Jian Wushuang? Wang Yuan asked anxiously. His soul fell into deep slumber. He is in a terrible state, but his life is not in danger, Emperor Bai said. His soul fell into a deep slumber. Wang Yuan frowned. He was the most powerful alchemist in the Green Fire World. His standard was also considered top tier within the eternal chaotic world. He was well versed in this area. However, only when one's soul was severely wounded would they fall into a deep slumber. Even though his life is not at risk, Zhen Wushuang could possibly slumber for the rest of his life if he is not awakened quickly, Wang Yuan said. This was the same for many of the experts from the ancient past. Some of the experts' souls had been severely wounded back in the ancient past. Many of them had fallen into deep slumber and could not wake. No worries. I ordered my men to prepare the necessary materials. I have also called some of the Master's information from the Sanctuary Alliance to prepare the Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation. Green Fire World is abundant in spiritual influence of heaven and earth. It is most suitable to place the Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation here. As long as Zhen Wushuang stays within the formation, his recovery should be speedy, Emperor Bai said. Chapter 2195 Deep Slumber. Emperor Bai made it sound very simple. In reality, even though the Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation and Spiritual Pool were both extremely helpful in the recovery of one's soul power, it was not easy to set up. Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation originated from the ancient past. At least 10 Masters of Formation were needed to form this formation. Furthermore, large amounts of resources were needed to keep this formation running. These resources could come in the forms of special power stones. However, unless the power stone was like that of the Supreme Emperor Stone, a large amount of these special power stones would be needed to keep the formation running. The Sanctuary Alliance could not bear such a cost. Hence, Emperor Bai commanded around 200 Almighty to stay there at the Wushuang city. They would provide divine power to keep the Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation running. As for the spiritual pool, it sounds ordinary. However, for the spiritual pool to be of use to Zhen Wushuang, large amounts of treasures and resources were needed, though the amount was much less than that required to open the Heaven Repairing Palace. As of the current ability of the Sanctuary Alliance, time was needed to prepare these resources. The cost was huge and the process was extremely complicated. No matter as Emperor Bai, nor any other Almighties, were unwilling to put in the effort. The person who needed this was Zhen Wushuang, the man who they owed the most to in this war. Zhen Wushuang had risked it all, even his life, to kill the Blood Emperor. They would give it their all as long as there was even the slightest of hope for him to recover. Besides the Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation and Spiritual Pool, we should prepare some elixir which helps in the recovery of soul power. However, such elixirs are rare and extremely difficult to make. We need to prepare, Emperor Bai said. I have elixirs which help in the recovery in soul power, Wang Yuan said. Huh? What type of elixir? Emperor Bai looked at Wang Yuan in surprise. Ice Soul Elixir, Wang Yuan said. Emperor Bai raised his eyebrows. Ice Soul Elixir was one of the more powerful elixirs that there was. This elixir was basically extinct in the eternal chaotic world. No one could create it. This ordinary-looking fat man could create the Ice Soul Elixir. How many of the Ice Soul Elixir do you have now? Emperor Bai asked. As of now, I only have 3. Wang Yuan whipped out a small bottle which contained 3 crystal clear elixir. After looking at the elixir and smelling its fragrance, Emperor Bai was sure that it was an extremely pure Ice Soul Elixir. 3 is too little, Emperor Bai frowned and said. Too little? It is all right. As long as I have sufficient materials, I can make more of these, Wang Yuan said. You can make Ice Soul Elixir? Emperor Bai was in disbelief. No alchemist master in the eternal chaotic world could create the Ice Soul Elixir, but this fat man here could? Emperor Bai might not know about this. Wang Yuan is Wushuang's brother. He has the unique constitution of being the celestial elixir. He received an opportunity in the ancient battlefield around the Green Fire World and mastered many techniques to create elixirs that existed in the ancient past. He indeed possesses incredible skills as an alchemist, Jian Nan Tian said. Celestial elixir was a unique constitution that every alchemist master dreamed of having. Furthermore, he had received an opportunity from the ancient past. Emperor Bai looked at Wang Yuan in a different light. He knew that even though this little fat man was a mere chaotic real god, every major faction in the eternal chaotic world would have died to have him join their factions. This was the same for the Sanctuary Alliance. I will ask my men to prepare the necessary materials to create the Ice Soul Elixir. I will leave the making of the elixir to you. I hope you can make at least one every decade, Emperor Bai said. One every 10 years. Wang Yuan was stunned. The Ice Soul Elixir was a high-grade elixir from the ancient past. It was not easy even for him. If he needed to make one every 10 years. Is there a problem? Emperor Bai asked. No problem. For my brother, I will make it happen, even if he needs one every year. At most, starting from today, I will not eat nor drink, just spend all my time making the elixir until Wushuang wakes up, Wang Yuan said as he shook his head. Hearing this, Emperor Bai nodded his head slowly. Soon, the entire Sanctuary Alliance started to work. They neglected everything else and managed to form the basic structure of the Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation and Spiritual Pool. Wang Yuan started to make elixir. This time, he would be spending the most time on one job ever since he was born. Sanctuary Alliance, Green Fire World and everyone of Jian Wushuang's family and friends gave it their all to ensure that the formation and the spiritual pool were running smoothly. Everyone was giving their all for Jian Wushuang. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang lay peacefully in the middle of the spiritual pool, in a deep slumber. While Jian Wushuang was in a deep slumber, somewhere in the eternal chaotic world, in an endless and dark void. Whoosh! A beautiful figure was rushing somewhere. She had a perfect figure. She wore a veil and looked like she was a fairy. She made her way forward. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. What? Lung Rushue raised her head and looked forward to her beautiful iris. There stood a man in a white cloak. The cloak looked like it was made of snow. He was handsome and cold yet arrogant. He stood there in the air, radiating no aura. It was like he was made of air. Emperor 13. Lung Rushue saw the man as she clenched her jaws. During the battle in the Blood Emperor Sanctuary grounds, she had not attacked at all. When she had realized that Blood Emperor was about to die, she had turned and escaped immediately. She was far away from the experts from the eternal chaotic world. She had left promptly and no one could catch up to her. However, not long after she had left the Three Emperors world, Emperor 13 had appeared in front of her. Chapter 2196 You are too controlling. After a deep breath, Lung Rushue gave a modest look. Greetings, Emperor 13. I am Lung Rushue. Emperor 13 looked at Lung Rushue coldly without saying a word. Lung Rushue was nervous. She was fearful of Emperor 13. He had managed to shake the restrictions of heaven and earth and reach the half-step divine demon realm with his own power. Back in the ancient past, he had been even more powerful. He could solo the master of Holy Land and could go even against the being that supported Lung Rushue. If Emperor 13 wanted to kill her, there was nothing she could do. From the myths, Emperor 13 would never kill a weakling. To him, I am just someone insignificant who was born at this age. He would not kill me. Furthermore, he was on Jian Wushuang's side and helped Jian Wushuang during his time of need. Within my body, I suppressed that woman's consciousness. If he really tried anything funny, I could simply commit suicide with her. If that happened, he would not be able to face Jian Wushuang. Lung Rushue thought to herself as she calmed down. She believed that Emperor 13 would not kill her. Suddenly, Emperor 13, who stood there peacefully, raised his right hand and pointed at her. This action looked very casual. However, heaven and earth shook as the space was ripped apart. An enormous fault in heaven and earth appeared. This fault continued to expand at terrifying speed. 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 100,000 feet, 1,000,000 feet. This cracked sped towards her. Oh no! Lung Rushue turned pale. Right when she thought Emperor 13 would not have done anything funny to try and kill her, he attacked. Instantly, Lung Rushue was radiating an unique aura. This aura was at the power level of a Stage 3 Great Emperor. Her jet-black hair turned white and her irises turned grey. When Lung Rushue was about to deflect the sword from Emperor 13, the humongous crack disappeared. The terrifying sword essence dissipated. The entire space was peaceful, except for the destructive aura that she was radiating. Emperor 13 stood there, surprised. Lung Rushue looked at Emperor 13, confused. Emperor 13 was not trying to kill her. That sword was to test Lung Rushue. As for why? White hair, grey irises. Destiny constitution. No wonder. The only reason you can reach such a stage within such a short time is because of that person helping you. Lung Rushue frowned. She knew who Emperor 13 was referring to. Her unique constitution was only linked to that being. Seeing that Lung Rushue did not say anything in defense, Emperor 13 said once again, "Tell this to the person behind you, she is too controlling of the things she should not be. If she does not stop in time, I will stop her, one way or another." Emperor 13 turned around and left. Lung Rushue stared at Emperor 13's back coldly. A few days later, Lung Rushue reached a unique mystery land. Sanctuary Alliance had no idea that the Holocaust sect had complete control over this mystery land. At the depth of the mystery land, there was a majestic altar. Lung Rushue squeezed a blood essence from her index finger as it dripped onto the secret restrictions on the altar. The entire altar started to run. Within moments, a blurry figure appeared on this altar. This blurry figure was over 2 meters tall and her facial expressions could not be seen clearly. From the looks of it, the figure belonged to a beautiful female. "Master," Lung Rushue said as she saluted the figure. "Blood Emperor failed?" A soft and graceful voice was heard. "Yes," Lung Rushue nodded her head lightly. "Ha. This is within my predictions. That dumbass. Does he really think a formation can shake the restrictions of heaven and earth here? What a joke. Has he ever thought about who made the restrictions of heaven and earth? Even the other 2 masters of Holy Land cannot do so with all their might. Who is he to try?" The blurry figure mocked. The blurry figure looked down on Blood Emperor. It was not just because of the Blood Emperor's weak fighting power. More importantly, it was because he was arrogant. He did not know the true power of the restrictions. "Master, during the battle, Emperor 13 was there," Lung Rushue continued. "Emperor 13? The blurry figure said with a deeper voice as she treated this more seriously. She did not care about a mere Blood Emperor. However, it was a different case when it came to Emperor 13. "Has Emperor 13 awakened? Looks like those experts who were in slumber in that heaven and earth are all about to wake up," the blurry figure sighed. "Master, Emperor 13 came over and found me alone. He knows about your existence. He asked me to pass you a message," Lung Rushue said. "Speak," the blurry figure said. "He wants me to tell you that you are too controlling of some things that you shouldn't be. If you do not stop, he will, one way or another," Lung Rushue said. "How dare he?" The blurry figure was instantly enraged. "Even the old owner of the 7-star Black Sect would not dare to say that to me. Emperor 13, you got courage. Who is he to say that?" Lung Rushue stood there, quietly listening. Even though the blurry figure was enraged, there was nothing she could do. The blurry figure looked down at her right arm. If her original body had been there and she lifted up her sleeve, a clear sword scar would have been seen. Even though the scar was not large, it represented the greatest disgrace in her life. That was exactly the reason why she had kept the sword scar on her arm and refused to let it heal. Emperor 13 was the one who had left the sword scar there. "Emperor 13, you should feel lucky that the restrictions of heaven and earth are far too powerful there. I cannot go there personally. If not, I would personally tear you to bits." The blurry figure yelled before she looked over at Lung Rushue. "Disciple, tell this to those who are about to awaken. 30,000 years later, heaven's horizon. That is their only chance." Chapter 2197 Old Monsters in Deep Slumber 30,000 years later, heaven's horizon. That is their only chance. Once the blurry figure said these words, the figure disappeared from the altar. Lung Rushue stood there, excited. After hearing what the blurry figure said, she thought to herself, 30,000 years. Is the time finally coming? Ha, these old monsters have waited for this for all eternity. She smiled creepily before she left. Within the eternal chaotic world, there were many dangerous places. The most dangerous was undoubtedly the 8 layers. Even though the 8 layers were extremely dangerous, there were many opportunities within. The 8 layers was one of the best places for experts to venture into. After the battlefield from the ancient past was revealed, many of the experts from the eternal chaotic world went to venture into the ancient mystery land or the battlefield around Greenfire World. The 8 lairs were neglected. Only some of the real gods who could not venture into the ancient battlefield would choose to venture into the 8 lairs. Within the 8 lairs, the 6th lair. The 6th lair was one of the most infamous places. Many of the experts higher than the realm of Sir God dared not venture in. The Buddhist Demon Sea was one of the most notorious places. Back when Jian Wushuang had been set up by the Akron Palace, he had entered Buddhist Demon Sea in order to save Lei Chao. He was lucky as he had received help from experts and managed to survive. After what happened, Jian Wushuang knew that there were 2 experts from the ancient past residing there in slumber. One of the 2 experts was One-Star Man. The other man had an ancient flood dragon and had tried to kill Jian Wushuang. These 2 experts resided in the Buddhist Demon Sea. On this day, a beautiful figure stepped foot into the Buddhist Demon Sea. This beautiful figure was Lang Rushue. Buddhist Demon Sea. Is that man still in slumber here? Lang Rushue looked at the endless sea and thought to herself. Those experts who had survived from the ancient battlefield usually slumbered in the ancient battlefields. For example, the ancient mystery land. Many experts from the ancient past chose those places for their slumbers. There were exceptions, of course. The battle back then had been so fierce that the entire ancient battlefield had been spread throughout this world. The Buddhist Demon Sea was one of them. Lang Rushue did not hesitate and continued to head deep into the Buddhist Demon Sea. The Buddhist Demon Sea was very dangerous. However, Lang Rushue was a stage 3 great emperor. Soon, she reached the depth of the sea. Here, it was covered in black mist. The black mist contained unimaginable corrosive power. At the deepest part of the Buddhist Demon Sea, even a great emperor would find it difficult to stop the corrosive power. Lang Rushue floated there, motionless. Right then, in the sea below, a large wave erupted as a black figure rose and appeared behind Lang Rushue. This black figure was an ancient flood dragon. His whole body was covered in black scales which radiated death. Its mouth opened as it bit Lang Rushue with its 2 sharp teeth. Lang Rushue stood there. She noticed that the ancient flood dragon was attacking her, but she did not bother dodging or defending herself from the attack. Right when Lang Rushue was about to be bitten by the ancient flood dragon, she yelled, "Old monster dragon, do you wish to be trapped here in the Buddhist Demon Sea forever?" Her voice filled the entire Buddhist Demon Sea. The ancient flood dragon stopped in its tracks. The teeth of the dragon were about to touch Lang Rushue. However, it stopped and dared not move another inch forward. Lang Rushue turned around slowly as she looked at the ancient flood dragon coldly. There was no fear in her eyes. The ancient flood dragon was very fierce and savage. However, under the stare of Lang Rushue, it backed off and closed its mouth. On the back of the ancient flood dragon, a blurry figure formed. He had black armor and an extremely violent aura. His eyes were like those of a venomous snake as he looked at Lang Rushue. "Little brat, who are you?" The blurry figure, who was Old Monster Dragon, said with a deep voice. Lang Rushue did not reply. Her hair turned white and her irises turned grey instantly. A terrifying aura of destruction swept out in all directions. White-haired and grey irises. "You are that person's." Old Monster Dragon was shocked. His attitude instantly turned for the battle. "I am sorry that I scared you, little girl," he said as he stomped on the ancient flood dragon, as though he was punishing it. Lang Rushue stood there coldly, not saying a thing. "Little girl, you came today under that person's orders?" Old Monster Dragon asked nervously. "Humph. My master wants me to tell you this. 30,000 years later, heaven's horizon. That is one and only chance. If you miss it," Lang Rushue grunted. She turned around and left, completely ignoring Old Monster Dragon. On the vast ocean, the ancient flood dragons float there. Old Monster Dragon stood on his dragon, stunned. He was completely stunned. Soon, he regained his composure. "Ha ha ha. Finally. How long has it been? I can finally leave this terrible place. 30,000 years, the last 30,000 years." His crazy laughter was like letting go of his helplessness over these years. It contained some sadness as his laughter reverberated throughout the vast ocean. However, in the Buddhist demon sea, there was more than one person who was in a slumber. One Star Man was there too. When Leng Rushue appeared there, One Star Man realized her presence. When Old Monster Dragon laughed, One Star Man had a complicated look. 30,000 years. Those old men in a slumber must be excited. Looks like it is time for me to get out of this place and see some sunlight. Chapter 21. 98 Days of Slumber. After the war was over, peace quickly returned to the eternal chaotic world. The various forces settled down as well. They continued their normal daily activities. The experts from the Special Tribes Alliance returned to the Special Tribes territory and back into their own tribes. King Luo Yu was the only one who stayed back and awaited Jian Wushuang's awakening. As for the Black Dragon Emperor, she was the leader of her clan. Even though she had feelings for Jian Wushuang, she could not stay and had to return to settle important matters within her own clan. She could only come and visit him occasionally. It was a pity that Jian Wushuang remained asleep and did not awaken. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, 7,000 years passed. The eternal chaotic world returned to normal. The cultivators here continued their failed lives. They continued to venture out for opportunities, sparring with others as the competition continued. Within Wushuang City in the Green Fire world, the fat Wang Yuan sat in the middle of an open patch of ground and drank his wine happily. Whoosh! A beautiful girl in black clothes suddenly appeared beside Wang Yuan. Congratulations on your breakthrough, Su Ru. You are the sixth Almighty the Green Fire world has had. What is there to congratulate about being the sixth Almighty? Su Ru said. Green Fire world was a sanctuary filled with geniuses. The cultivating conditions here were far superior, hence the rate of growth of numbers of experts was incredibly fast as well. Before the battle against the Three Emperors world, the Green Fire world had only had one Almighty, Jian Nantian. The other experts were only in the realm of Sir God. After merely 7,000 years after the Great War, 5 Almighties had been born and Su Ru was one of them. 2 of the few who broke through earlier than me have cultivated for less than 20,000 years. How can I compare myself to them? Su Ru smiled. They are different from us. They were only born after the cultivating conditions of the Green Fire world changed for the better. They have had a much bigger advantage since birth. How can you compare yourself to them? Wang Yuan added. What about Jian Wushuang? He came from the same era as us, Su Ru continued. Fat. Are you alright, Su Ru? Did you just try to compare yourself to him? Wang Yuan choked on his alcohol when he heard what Su Ru said. That is true, Su Ru said as she shrugged her shoulders. Jian Wushuang indeed came from the same era as them and was like a brother to them. His talent and potential was on another level. How can you be so free to be drinking here? Shouldn't you be making the Ice Soul Elixir? Or has Jian Wushuang awakened from his slumber? Su Ru asked. Jian Wushuang. He is still in deep slumber. I have no idea when he can awaken from his slumber. There is no hurry in making the Ice Soul Elixir as I have already made so much that there is some in reserve. It should suffice for a period of time, Wang Yuan continued. After Jian Wushuang fell into a deep slumber, Wang Yuan started to make Ice Soul Elixir at a crazy rate. He did not rest and gave it his all in making them. Wang Yuan was talented in the area of alchemy. During the process of making the Ice Soul Elixir, his alchemy skills were constantly improving. It became increasingly easy for him to make the Ice Soul Elixir as he was constantly making them at a crazy rate. Now, he could make several Ice Soul Elixir every year. Given the incredible amount of time he had taken to make the elixir, there were sufficient reserves for Jian Wushuang for a period of time. When the elixir was about to be used up, he would then continue to make the elixir. Wang Yuan and Su Ru chatted casually. Right then, Jian Nantian transmitted a message to them. Wait, Emperor Bai is here. Come, let's head to the spiritual pool. Wang Quan raised his eyebrows and said. There were numerous guards constantly protecting the spiritual pool. They were led by Jian Wushuang's servant, Jian Yi. This was to ensure that no one would get in the way of Jian Wushuang's recovery. Emperor Bai, Jian Nantian, Wang Yuan, Su Ru, and Hall Master Yuan stood in front of the spiritual pool. Emperor Bai was looking at Jian Wushuang, who lay motionless and peaceful in the spiritual pool. A small amount of spiritual power swept towards Jian Wushuang as it was used to scan his consciousness sea. This spiritual power was not destructive nor invasive. It simply scanned Jian Wushuang's consciousness sea before dissipating. Emperor Bai, how is he? Jian Nantian asked. If I'm not wrong, his soul has completely recovered, Emperor Bai said. Recovered? Jian Nantian was elated. Awesome. Wang Yuan and Su Ru were all excited. Since his soul has completely recovered, why is he still asleep? Su Ru asked. His soul will only fall into a deep slumber once it has been injured like never before. This state is extremely dangerous as any small accidents could cause him to remain in slumber for all eternity. Even though his soul has completely recovered, we never know when he will regain consciousness. It might take a year or two. However, it might even take 100,000 years, or even 1,000,000. Is that the case? Jian Nantian, Wang Yuan, and the rest turned pale. They had underestimated how dangerous it was for one's soul to fall into deep slumber. The experts who were in deep slumber from the ancient past would have awakened long ago if all it took for an expert in slumber to awaken was for their soul to recover completely. Let us wait a little more. Continue to feed him the ice soul elixir and let him remain within the spiritual pool. Even though we do not know for sure when he will awaken, his soul power will definitely become much more powerful once he awakens. These things will only benefit him, Emperor Bai said before he left. Jian Nantian and the rest were disappointed. All they could do now was wait. As time passed, the quality and quantity of the resources within the green fire world increased and became better. The cultivating atmosphere was also optimal, and hence numerous experts were born. There were originally 6 Almighties. Soon after, the 7th and 8th Almighty came about. In the 10,000s year Jian Wushuang was in slumber, there were a total of 12 Almighties within the green fire world. In the next 1,000 years, there was another leap in numbers. Within this 1,000 years, there were a total of 5 new Almighties. Among the 5 were 2 who had unique constitutions. They were very talented and it seemed likely that they could reach the Emperor God realm, or even the Great Emperor realm. During the same 1,000 years, one man managed to break through to the realm of Emperor God. This man was Jian Nantian. He was the second man to reach the Emperor God realm, the first being Jian Wushuang. Everyone thought that it would take longer for him to break through into this realm. No one expected him to break through again within 20,000 years. Chapter 2199 Awaken. The birth of the first Emperor God had brought about a leap in overall power of the green fire world. Jian Nantian's breakthrough had also reaffirmed that the green fire world had great potential as the experts from the various factions within the eternal chaotic world took great note of this place. At the rate of growth it was having, the green fire world would become an incredible place. The experts were extremely envious and had even greater desire to enter this place. However, due to the agreement that the factions and Jian Wushuang had, no one dared to enter the cities. After all, the green fire world was the birthplace of the Sword Emperor. And the Sword Emperor was a legend. He was one of the most powerful men within the eternal chaotic world. During the great battle 10 of thousands years ago, he had single-handedly turned the tides of the battle and won it for the eternal chaotic world. Even the great emperors within the Sanctuary Alliance feared and respected him and followed the agreement to never step foot into the green fire world. It was impossible for the ordinary experts within the eternal chaotic world to try anything funny. Green fire world continued to grow progressively. Time continued to pass. Within the Wushuang city, Jian Wushuang lay in the spiritual pool motionlessly. Right then, Jian Wushuang's finger and eyelids trembled slightly before he finally opened his eyes. Awakened. Jian Wushuang finally awakened from his deep slumber. Where am I? Jian Wushuang looked around, confused. He saw that he was submerged within a pool of water with unique properties. He had no idea how this spiritual pool had come about. His last memory was of the battlefield years ago. I remember that I cast soul ignition and tried to use the 7th seal of the 9-province seal in an attempt to kill the Blood Emperor. It was a pity that it failed. Then, Master appeared. Zhen Wushuang recalled seeing Xian Yi. Xian Yi appeared suddenly during that battle. He merely recalled that Xian Yi had appeared. He had no idea what had happened after, as his consciousness had started to fade from the aftereffects from soul ignition. He also had no idea what had happened during the time he had been asleep. He only knew he had slept. He had slept peacefully and soundly. He had no worries and no distractions. He simply went into a deep slumber. It was the best sleep he had ever had. I wondered what happened after I went into the deep slumber. The Blood Emperor should have been killed back then, Zhen Wushuang muttered to himself as he surveyed the area. He knew that he had slept for a considerable amount of time. Since he was alive, the eternal chaotic world should have won that war and Blood Emperor should be dead by now. If the Blood Emperor was still around, the eternal chaotic world would have been destroyed and he would be dead. Huh? Zhen Wushuang raised his eyebrows in surprise. What happened? My soul power, the power it contains. Zhen Wushuang could clearly sense that his soul was completely different. It was so much more powerful and had much more tenacity. His soul power had previously barely reached the level of a stage 2 great emperor. It was rare to find someone with soul power at that level in the eternal chaotic world. However, it was nothing compared to people like Blood Emperor and other experts at that level. However, Zhen Wushuang's current soul power was at least 10 times more powerful. Yes, 10 times. It had barely reached the level of a stage 2 great emperor previously. Now, his soul power was at the level of a peak stage 3 great emperor. How can this be? My soul was almost burnt up. How can it be that my soul recovered and got so much stronger? Zhen Wushuang was in disbelief. However, he would not be surprised if he knew how magical the formation and spiritual pool surrounding him was, and how many ice soul elixir he had taken. Both the Taiying soul resurrection formation and the spiritual pool were made at a huge cost. This cost was far greater than Zhen Wushuang could have imagined. With both of these working together to help Zhen Wushuang repair his soul, it would have been weird if he did not recover and come back stronger. Most important was the ice soul elixir. This elixir was used by experts back in the ancient past to make their soul stronger. Even back in the ancient past, the ice soul elixir was rare. In this era, this elixir was almost extinct. It had a great effect in making one's soul much more powerful than before. One ice soul elixir was already very helpful for any great emperor. On a normal day, the Almighty within the eternal chaotic world had to pay a huge price just to get an elixir similar to that of the ice soul elixir. However, Zhen Wushuang had a good brother, Wang Yuan, who had helped him make ice soul elixir as easily as making beans. Zhen Wushuang had been fed one every now and then. How many ice soul elixir had he taken over all these years of slumber? The number would be terrifying. It would have been weird if his soul power had not grown so much. Back then during the battle, my soul power was only at the level of a stage 2 great emperor. However, I could threaten a stage 3 great emperor like Demon King Chen Yu when I cast soul attack with the help of the soul swallowing pearl and the 3 divine lights secret skill. Now that my soul power is so much stronger, how strong will my soul attack be? I think no one in the realm of the great emperor can stop it. Even Emperor Bai. Zhen Wushuang looked confused. Emperor Bai was a very powerful man that could reach the battle power of a chaotic divine demon. However, his soul might not be that powerful. I want to try if I have the chance, Zhen Wushuang smiled. He stood up from the spiritual pool and walked out of the formation. Wushuang City was located on a vast empty land. Wang Yuan sat lazily on a bench and leaned on the tree behind him. In front of Wang Yuan, Hall Master Yuan was stood casually. Beside him was another blurry figure. That blurry figure was a consciousness incarnation, and the owner was a powerful emperor god. This emperor god stood in front of Wang Yuan modestly. Chapter 2200 Master Wang, I have prepared all the materials needed to make the fiery purple dragon howl elixir, including the blood essence. You see, the elder man with brown hair said. Fiery purple dragon howl elixir is a high-level elixir. Even though I can make it, it will not be easy, Wang Yuan said lazily. The elder with brown hair was an emperor god and understood what Wang Yuan meant and smiled. Don't worry, Master Wang. I have prepared millions of doctrine gems and other special materials as thanks for your service, Hall Master Yuan. Hall Master Yuan waved his hand as a Qian Kuan ring appeared. This ring had been prepared by the elder man in brown hair and he passed it to Hall Master Yuan and asked him to bring it into Wushuang City. This place was part of the Green Fire world and the elder man could not enter personally. He could only send a consciousness embodiment in. A consciousness embodiment could not bring a Qian Kuan ring in. Doctrine gems were packed densely within this ring and stacked as high as a mountain. There were also many other treasures. These were high-level treasures which were required to make many high-level elixirs. Wang Yuan scanned the Qian Kuan ring casually before he continued, "It is not easy to make the fiery purple dragon howl elixir. I will try my best to make one for you since you are so sincere. However, I cannot be sure I can make it in one try. If I fail, the set of materials will go to waste. Hence, you will need to prepare a few more sets of raw materials." Master Wang, you are right. I have thought of this, hence I prepared 3 sets of raw materials, the elder man replied. 3 sets? That is too little. I need at least 5 sets of materials and I can guarantee you 1 fiery purple dragon howl elixir, Wang Yuan said. 5. The elder man's face twitched. The fiery purple dragon howl elixir was of a very high level, on par with the ice soul elixir. The materials of these elixirs were not cheap. He did not have the ability to throw in tremendous resources to search for the raw materials, unlike Sanctuary Alliance, in order to help Jian Wushuang to awaken from his slumber. Even so, there were insufficient raw materials. Wang Yuan could make around 10 of such elixirs with 1 set of raw materials thanks to his ever-improving and professional alchemy skills. This elder man was a mere emperor god. It took him tremendous effort to search for these 3 sets of raw materials. 2 more sets. The elder man looked at Wang Yuan with his fists clenched. He knew clearly that the fiery purple dragon howl elixir was of a similar difficulty level to the ice soul elixir. With Wang Yuan's alchemist skills, he could definitely make at least 1 elixir with 3 sets of materials. Him wanting 3 sets meant that he wanted to reap more benefits. Even so, there was nothing he could do. He desperately needed the fiery purple dragon howl elixir. Even though within the eternal chaotic world, there were ways passed down from the ancient past to make this elixir, few alchemists could make it. He tried to ask another alchemist to make this elixir for him. The other alchemist too asked for great amounts of resources and treasures. Furthermore, the other alchemist asked for 10 sets of raw materials to guarantee the return of 1 elixir. Wang Yuan's request seemed decent given that other alchemists had asked for even more benefits to make the same elixir. The elder man looked at Hall Master Yuan pleadingly. Hall Master Yuan smiled subtly before he said, "Mr. Wang Yuan, Emperor God Jin Luo took tens of thousands of years to gather 3 sets of raw materials. It would be difficult for him to find another 2 more sets. Hence, understood. Give me 4 sets of raw materials. I should be able to make 1 fiery purple dragon howl elixir if I give it my all." Hearing this, Hall Master Yuan nodded his head and said no more. The elder man knitted his eyebrows. It would not be easy for him to gather even 1 more set of raw materials. "If you cannot prepare 4 sets of raw materials, I am sorry to say that I cannot help you," Wang Yuan said. No. I just need some time. I will go prepare now," the elder man said. "Once you are done with the preparations, pass the materials to Hall Master Yuan. I will inform you once I am free and successfully make your elixir. Nowadays, I am busy making the ice soul elixir for my brother. The faster you prepare, the faster I can plan my schedule," Wang Yuan said. Yes, the elder man nodded his head in a hurry, afraid that Wang Yuan would regret his decision. "Oh yes. Leave the Qian Kuan ring behind," Wang Yuan said. The brown-hair elder man left the ring behind and left, distressed. After the elder man left, "Mr. Wang Yuan, you have just made an excellent deal. With your alchemist skills, 1 set of raw materials is more than enough to make 1 fiery purple dragon howl elixir. Now you will get 4 sets, with an additional 1 million doctrine gems and numerous treasures. I am afraid no one within the eternal chaotic world can match your speed in obtaining resources and treasures. Hall Master Yuan smiled. Haha. Back in the ancient worlds with my brothers, my family ran a trading corporation. I know how to maximize the benefits for myself in a trade. Wang Yuan laughed. He was not afraid that the elder man would not meet his conditions. In the eternal chaotic world, no one would dare to call themselves the best alchemist if they declared themselves second. It was because he received a big opportunity in the ancient battlefield. He had managed to get the legacy from the ancient past, and he knew how to make many elixirs from the ancient past. After this news spread, his life had been very smooth sailing. There would be almighties, even great emperors who would find him and ask him to make some elixirs for them, though it came with a great price. Wang Yuan and Hall Master Yuan chatted casually, unaware that there was a man behind them listening to whatever they said. Wang Yuan, you are leading quite a good life. A gentle voice appeared as Zhen Wushuang walked out, smiling. Of course. My life is, Wang Yuan replied instinctively before he stopped. His eyes widened in surprise. This voice sounded very familiar. Chapter 2201 Zhen Wushuang's Awakening Brother. Wang Yuan turned around and stared at Zhen Wushuang. Palace Master. Hall Master Yuan was pleasantly surprised. It is me. Took both of you some time to recognize me, Zhen Wushuang smiled. Oh God, yes. You finally awakened. Wang Yuan charged at Zhen Wushuang and gave him a bear hug. From what I have heard, it looks like I have been in slumber for a long time. Furthermore, your alchemist skills have improved greatly, am I right? Zhen Wushuang smiled. Of course. I am now the best alchemist in the eternal chaotic world, Wang Yuan said triumphantly. The best in the eternal chaotic world? Are you really that good? Zhen Wushuang was surprised. Palace Master, Mr. Wang Yuan indeed possesses incredible alchemist skills. The reason why your soul could recover so quickly was because he made numerous ice soul elixir for you, Hall Master Yuan said. Oh. Zhen Wushuang looked at Wang Yuan. Let's not talk about this. It is wonderful that you finally awakened from your slumber. I'll gather everyone else. Wang Yuan started transmitting messages. Zhen Wushuang did not stop Wang Yuan. Soon, the message got through to Zhen Nantian, Ji Wuming, Su Ru, Lin Lan, He Xiu, Shui Lingtian, and many other people who were close to Zhen Wushuang. Wushuang. Zhen Nantian and his wife looked at their son, elated. Dad, Mum, I am not a good child. I made both of you worry, Zhen Wushuang apologized. It is okay. You have awakened. Zhen Nantian did not blame him and heaved a sigh of relief. He took the most pride in his son. Zhen Wushuang was not only the backbone of the green fire world, but also of the eternal chaotic world. Zhen Wushuang then greeted Su Ru and the remaining people. He was surprised that many of his close friends had become much stronger. Wang Yuan had already been an extremely skilled alchemist before the Great Battle, though he was still far from being the best alchemist. Even though not everyone agreed that Wang Yuan was the best alchemist, he was confident that he was. His alchemist skills had improved greatly, seeing the attitude of the brown-haired elder man when he was requesting for Wang Yuan's service. His father, Zhen Nantian, had previously been in the realm of Sir God. Now, he was in the realm of Emperor God. Su Ru and Shui Lingtian had both reached the realm of Sir God. Even though Green Fire World had an extremely conducive cultivating environment, these people would not have improved so greatly without time. How long have I been in slumber? Zhen Wushuang muttered to himself. Soon, everyone within the palace were being served with good food and wine. They sat down and started chatting. Zhen Wushuang finally knew how long he had been in a slumber. 24,000 years. Yes, after the great battle, he had fallen into a deep slumber. It had been 24,000 years since that great battle. To Zhen Wushuang, this was a great amount of time. He had cultivated for less than 10,000 years since birth, unlike many almighty experts within the eternal chaotic who were at hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years old. Emperor Bai was an example of such an expert. He had been born in the first era, and his age was beyond Zhen Wushuang's wildest imagination. At the same time, Zhen Wushuang got to know what everyone had done for him when he was in deep slumber. He knew the cost of building the Taiying Soul Resurrection Formation and the spiritual pool. On top of this, the cost of making ice soul elixirs. Big boss Wang Yuan. Zhen Wushuang looked at Wang Yuan gratefully and with excitement. Wang Yuan had had to make one ice soul elixir every 10 years for him for 24,000 years. Ice soul elixir was an extremely high-grade elixir. If it had been any other alchemist in the eternal chaotic world, they might only have been able to make one, even if they had sufficient resources, after hundreds of years. However, Wang Yuan had made 2,400 elixirs within this short amount of time. This was an enormous amount. Thank you. Zhen Wushuang finally said these two words. Ha. You do not need to be so formal with me, brother, Wang Yuan answered casually. Their relationship went beyond life and death. They were brothers who went through thick and thin together. To Wang Yuan, it was nothing to spend some time on making some elixirs for Zhen Wushuang. After a deep breath, Zhen Wushuang started asking about what had changed in the green fire world. 24,000 years was a very long time. A lot had changed in the green fire world. There were now 26 almighties, including Zhen Nantian, who was an emperor god. There were numerous real gods and other geniuses. The green fire world really did grow. This is just the beginning. Given time, the number of experts within the green fire world will only increase and it will be confirmed as one of the best places within the eternal chaotic world. Zhen Wushuang felt that his hard work was worth it given how much the green fire world had grown and prospered. Wushuang, you should inform Emperor Bai and the rest of the great emperors that you have awakened. During the time that you were in slumber, they put in great effort to help you build the Taiying Resurrection Formation and the spiritual pool. Furthermore, it cost a fortune to keep these running, Zhen Nantian said. Yes, I have already transmitted a message, Zhen Wushuang smiled. He transmitted the message when he awakened. Emperor Bai and the rest would be on their way. Not just Emperor Bai, you should tell the experts from the special tribes. Furthermore, what is with the Black Dragon Emperor? Wang Yuan asked out of nowhere. Black Dragon Emperor? What's wrong? Zhen Wushuang was curious. Don't act dumb. It is obvious that she is interested in you. When you were in your slumber, she would visit you once every now and then. She is the leader of her clan and has a lot of urgent matters to attend to, yet she visited you more than Emperor Bai and the other experts. Wang Yuan asked playfully. Hearing this, Zhen Wushuang was stunned but helpless. He knew that Black Dragon Emperor was interested in him. However, he was already married. In this life, he would only love his wife and his wife alone. He would not accept anyone else. Looks like I have to speak to Black Dragon Emperor about this, Zhen Wushuang muttered. Chapter 2202 Time for a Change. Emperor Bai, Abysmal Saint Master, Ancestor Tian Chen and many other experts from the Sanctuary Alliance reached after a while. King Chen Xin, King Luo Yu and the Black Dragon Emperor from the Special Tribes Alliance came along too. When everyone saw that Zhen Wushuang had awakened, they were all surprised and elated. This was especially the case for the experts from the Special Tribes Alliance. Black Dragon Emperor was the happiest person of them all. When he saw that large number of visitors, Zhen Wushuang held a banquet. At the banquet, some of the most powerful experts in the eternal chaotic world gathered to celebrate and have fun. Some of them toasted Zhen Wushuang. Zhen Wushuang toasted back in response. At the banquet, Zhen Wushuang, you slept for 24,000 years. During this time, the eternal chaotic world changed. Emperor Bai smiled. Oh. Zhen Wushuang looked over at Emperor Bai. The star of this banquet was Zhen Wushuang, while Emperor Bai was second to only him. He sat together beside Emperor Bai while the remaining people sat in front of them. During the previous battle, we suffered great casualties, many of which were pillars of support of their respective clans. The situation in the eternal chaotic world changed, though the changes are not of importance to you. Aside from the Sanctuary Alliance, the Green Fire world is the strongest power in the eternal chaotic world, and the second is the lineage of stars, Emperor Bai smiled. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Green Fire World was the strongest power. Lineage of Stars was second. He was the leader for both clans. Jian Wushuang rubbed his nose as he looked at Emperor Bai. He understood what Emperor Bai had implied. The more elite you are, the more likely it is that you will become a target in the eyes of others. It was good that the Green Fire World and the lineage of stars expanded and grew over time. However, there would be certain hidden risks. Now that the eternal chaotic world was not in the face of any threat, there would be internal fighting for resources. Within the Sanctuary Alliance, the great emperors would fight for their own power and standing. If Green Fire World and lineage of stars continuously remained so powerful, the other forces would fear them. This was especially the case for Green Fire World as its potential was limitless. Jian Wushuang thought to himself for a moment before he came to a decision. Hi everyone. Jian Wushuang stood up as his majestic voice was heard at every corner of the banquet. Everyone at the banquet turned and looked at him. Jian Wushuang continued, during the time I was in a deep sleep, there were many changes to the eternal chaotic world. Hence, the agreement between the Green Fire World and the rest of the eternal chaotic world should be amended as well. When the experts heard what Jian Wushuang had said, their faces turned pale. The agreement between Green Fire World and the rest of the eternal chaotic world. It was that no Almighty shall step foot onto the Green Fire World without permission. Clans could only send certain youngsters into the allocated area within the Green Fire World to cultivate. Once they reached the realm of real God, they have to leave. Many of the clans and tribes found it difficult to accept this agreement. Back then, Jian Wushuang had not been so powerful. However, he had in hand the strongest trump card that controlled the existence of Green Fire World and forced the other clans to sign the agreement. Now, with Jian Wushuang's power, he could force all of the youngsters who were cultivating in the Green Fire World to leave, and there was nothing they would be able to do. Jian Wushuang looked at everyone and smiled. Everyone calm down. I will not ask your youngsters to leave the Green Fire World. On the contrary, I will allow all experts, including Sir Gods, Emperor Gods, and Great Emperors to freely enter the Green Fire World. You can even stay there for as long as you like. What? Everyone was stunned, then they broke out in excitement. They were allowed into the Green Fire World? That was indisputably the best place for any cultivators to cultivate. The cultivation environment was many times better than the 10 sanctuaries. It was even better than Thunderbolt Island. Many of them had great desire to go there and cultivate. However, due to the agreement, they could only look at this sanctuary but not do anything. Now, Jian Wushuang had given them permission. Now that he had absolute power, he would not demand more, but even give concessions. Many of the experts were elated as they looked at Jian Wushuang gratefully. Jian Wushuang saw the reactions of these experts and smiled. If he wanted to, he could demand more from the eternal chaotic world by driving all other experts away. However, this would create resentment from the rest of the clans and cause them to have greater desire for the Green Fire World. They would not dare to do anything outrageous simply because he was around. However, if he were to leave one day, he would not be able to protect the Green Fire World anymore. The Green Fire World might be under assault. This could result in them losing their land, or worse, getting killed. Now that he had taken the initiative and taken a step back to give the rest of the eternal chaotic world something they always wanted, it would allow the rest of the experts to feel grateful and not be so extreme in their actions if they really invaded the Green Fire World. Second, this would allow Green Fire World to integrate with the eternal chaotic world and become the ultimate dream place for all cultivators. The best case would be that the people of Green Fire World and the rest of the eternal chaotic world would mix to produce offspring within the Green Fire World. If this was the case, people would treat the Green Fire World as though it was their own hometown. If the Green Fire World faced any danger or threats, there would be experts to step out voluntarily to face them. However, even though I allow the top tiers experts into the Green Fire World, I hope all of you will abide by the law of the Green Fire World. If there is anyone who does evil or even goes on a massacre, then I am sorry. I will take care of you personally. Jian Wushuang's voice suddenly turned cold and he said, Chapter 2203 The Emperor Bai in the Pa. Don't worry, Sword Emperor. We will definitely abide by the laws of the Green Fire World. If anyone dares to be funny, I will take care of them myself. Abysmal Saint Master stood up and said. Yes, yes. Don't worry, Sword Emperor. Whoever dares to play a fool within the eternal chaotic world will be our common enemy, the remaining experts and great emperors said. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang nodded his head in approval. Not bad. Emperor Bai looked over at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang shrugged his shoulders. He wanted to do this for a very long time. Green Fire World was originally part of the eternal chaotic world, but it had been completely isolated for a period of time. Jian Wushuang really hoped that Green Fire World could completely integrate with the eternal chaotic world. However, it was a pity that the Green Fire World had had too much potential and he had not been powerful enough back then. If he had allowed the experts from the other clans to enter the Green Fire World back then, he would have completely lost control of the Green Fire World. Now, it was different. He was powerful enough to control the Green Fire World and no one from the eternal chaotic world would try to do anything funny there. Even the great emperors within the Sanctuary Alliance had no choice but to listen to him, all except Emperor Bai. This was when he could give concessions to the rest. The banquet lasted 3 days and nights. The experts left after their hearts were full. Within Wushuang City, in a large garden, Jian Wushuang and Emperor Bai sat together at a table. Thank you, Emperor Bai, for all the things you did when I was in slumber, Jian Wushuang said gratefully. It is a small thing. You fell into slumber because you fought Blood Emperor for us. Since you gave your all for the eternal chaotic world, we too gave our all to take care of you. Furthermore, you don't have to talk to me so respectfully. We are about the same power level right now, Emperor Bai smiled. In terms of fighting power, Jian Wushuang would still lose to Emperor Bai. However, Jian Wushuang had a lot of trump cards, such as secret skills of Star Palace, which allowed him to have fighting power 1,000 times more than normal, which would be far above that of Emperor Bai. Hence, Emperor Bai would not ask Jian Wushuang to treat him as though he was superior. Alright, I will still call you Emperor Bai and neglect unnecessary etiquette, Jian Wushuang thought for a while before replying. Emperor Bai smiled as he whipped out a scroll. This scroll was the Mountain River map. This belongs to you. After you fell into slumber, I kept this treasure. Now that you awakened, I shall return it to its rightful owner, Emperor Bai said. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up with happiness. He took the treasure and put it in his Chen Kuan ring. During that battle, Jian Wushuang casted the 7th seal of the 9-province seal and killed the Blood Emperor before he fell into deep slumber. He did not have enough time to keep the Mountain River map. Jian Wushuang, did you receive this treasure from Xian Yi? Emperor Bai asked out of nowhere. Huh? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows as he looked at Emperor Bai in surprise. Xian Yi was his master. He had appeared during the final battle. However, Jian Wushuang had never spoken his name, and Xian Yi had not introduced himself at all. How did Emperor Bai know of this name? Emperor Bai, you know my master personally? Jian Wushuang asked. Your master? Of course I know him. Come, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, back in the First Era, there was a little brat. He was the core disciple of his family. His family was very powerful and was the ruler of a territory. This little brat had a very high status within the family, hence he was a spoiled child. This little brat did everything he wanted to without giving it much thought. He would stir up trouble everywhere, but no one dared to stand up against him given how powerful his family was. This lasted until one day, this little brat provoked a clan that was much more powerful than his own family. Out of anger, that clan destroyed his entire family within 1 year, and killed all of his loved ones. He was the only one that escaped. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang saw that Emperor Bai's eyes had started to tear up. Jian Wushuang understood immediately that that little brat was most likely Emperor Bai himself. I never thought that the most powerful man from the First Era was once a rich brat. Furthermore, his actions led to the annihilation of his entire family, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. There were many rich brats in this world. However, they were not born this way, to be evil. They were like this because of their upbringing, which caused them to do things without giving much thought. Once these kind of rich brats experienced great setbacks, they would either remain affected by the setback for the rest of their lives, or they would evolve into a better person. Emperor Bai was the latter. Even though the little brat managed to escape, he was extremely weak and powerless to do anything. There were assassins who were constantly after him. When he was desperate and was about to jump off a cliff, he met a mysterious man. This mysterious man managed to convince the little one not to jump. He was unwilling to resign himself to this fate. He felt anger, as this anger manifested into hatred. Under the effect of the words of the mysterious man, he wanted to take revenge. This mysterious man then gave him a cultivating technique called the heavenly creation skill. This teenage boy started to cultivate the technique and became very different from the remaining cultivators. His rate of growth was incredible, and was unbeatable for the people in the same realm as him. He took one step at a time, from being a weakling to becoming the most powerful man in the first era. He eventually destroyed his enemies and took revenge. Jian Wushuang's irises constricted. Heavenly creation skill, an inverse cultivation skill. This technique was given to him by a mysterious man. That mysterious man. Jian Wushuang stared at Emperor Bai. Like you should have guessed, that little brat was me when I was young. The mysterious man who gave me the cultivating technique was your master, Xian Yi. Emperor Bai said. Chapter 2204 The Secret to Inverse Cultivation. It's true. Jian Wushuang was right. That mysterious man was his master, Xian Yi. He had never thought that the inverse cultivating skill Emperor Bai had been given to him by Xian Yi. There were no inverse cultivators back in the ancient past. Emperor Bai is the first ever inverse cultivator in this world. That technique was given by my master. If that is the case, my master is the one who created the inverse cultivating skill. Jian Wushuang was in disbelief. Inverse cultivation. It was a brand new and unbelievable cultivating technique. Jian Wushuang was where he was due to this technique. As he got stronger, he slowly understood how powerful and terrifying this technique was. He had always wondered who had created such a powerful and magical cultivating technique. He knew that no matter who it was, it had to be someone incredible. Now, all the clues pointed to his master, Xian Yi. I have no idea whether this inverse cultivating technique was indeed created by your master. It might have been created by someone else and given to us through him. It does not matter. Your master is one of the most mysterious men I have ever met since the first era, Emperor Bai continued. People like Emperor 13 are incredibly powerful. He can partially ignore the restrictions of heaven and earth with his own power to reach the half-step divine demon realm. However, he is far less mysterious than your master, Xian Yi. Back in the first era, when I reached the 7th step of inverse cultivation, your master came to look for me. I asked him if he gave me the inverse cultivation technique, or if he wanted me to do anything for him. It was a pity that he did not give me a clear answer. He said that I did not meet his requirements and he did not have any special requests. All he asked of me was to pass any future inverse cultivators the technique for the 7th step if I ever were to meet one. That's all. Jian Wushuang frowned. Emperor Bai was the first inverse cultivator to reach the 7th step. However, he never knew what Xian Yi had wanted to do, or what he was really after. What were the requirements Xian Yi was talking about? After that, I have not seen your master at all. The first era collapsed and the second era started to prosper. Inverse cultivation started to gain popularity within the eternal chaotic world. However, only the first 5 steps were available to the general masses. Hence, these inverse cultivators could only reach the realm of universe God. Furthermore, there is the terrifying inverse cultivation test which every inverse cultivator had to go through. Many of them died, and the only one who passed was Wu Bei. Even though he passed the inverse cultivation test and got the cultivation technique for the 6th step, he reached the peak of real God. That was where he was stuck, Emperor Bai said coldly. Jian Wushuang nodded his head to show he understood what Emperor Bai had just said. Emperor Bai had just said that Xian Yi had told him to pass the 7th step of inverse cultivation to anyone who had great talent. Real God Wu Bei. Jian Wushuang knew him. He had passed the inverse cultivation test and managed to enter the 6th step. However, he was not very talented. Emperor Bai would not pass the 7th step to such an ordinary cultivator. The next inverse cultivator who had managed to rise up was Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had passed the inverse cultivator test and proven himself to be one of the most talented cultivators in the eternal chaotic world. Here, Emperor Bai was not stingy and gave him the technique for the 7th step inverse cultivation. Jian Wushuang recalled the first time he had met Emperor Bai. Emperor Bai had been very intimate and peaceful. He did not act all high and mighty. Back then, Jian Wushuang had suspected this was because of Emperor 13. Now he thought about it, it might have been because of Emperor 13, but he was not the main reason. The real reason was because both of them were inverse cultivators. Understood. Jian Wushuang exclaimed to himself. Many of the doubts he had had were answered. However, he still had 2 burning questions. The first, whether inverse cultivation was created by his master Xian Yi and what was his purpose of doing so if he did so. The second, Xian Yi's true identity. Jian Wushuang knew from past experience that Xian Yi came from the ancient past and had been a very influential and powerful man back then. He might be the reason why 7-star Black Sect was in danger and the reason why many experts from the ancient past had fallen into deep slumber. What kind of identity and power did he have to create all this? Furthermore, Emperor 13 was from the 7-star Black Sect and was the leader of the 7 stars. If Xian Yi was the reason why the 7-star Black Sect had been annihilated, why was Emperor 13 helping him? To be honest, I envy you, Jian Wushuang, Emperor Bai said. Huh? Jian Wushuang looked at Emperor Bai, astonished. Mr. Xian Yi only passed me the inverse cultivating technique. He does not interact with me much. He took you in as a lineal disciple and gave you numerous treasures. He treats you no differently to the way you treat him, Emperor Bai muttered, envious. Emperor Bai thought that Jian Wushuang was someone who met the requirements and was the one who Xian Yi really needed. On the other hand, he did not meet the requirements, and hence did not qualify for such treasures. Jian Wushuang smiled. He had to admit that Xian Yi really did treat him very well, just how a master should. Emperor Bai, thank you for all this info, Jian Wushuang thanked him gratefully. After Emperor Bai said all those things, many of the doubts that Jian Wushuang had disappeared. Now, he knew more about his master. Haha. You're welcome. I am looking forward to seeing what Xian Yi has in mind. Oh yes, this transmission token is for you, Emperor Bai laughed. Emperor Bai whipped out a token. This is. Jian Wushuang looked at the transmission token, confused. Emperor 13 asked me to pass this to you. He wants you to message him once you awaken, Emperor Bai said. Is that the case? Jian Wushuang said as he fell into deep thought. Chapter 2205. There can only be one Emperor Bai left soon after. Within the garden, Jian Wushuang held the transmission token in his hands. Emperor 13. It is time we have a good talk. Let's not rush into this. Let me handle my other things first, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. Jian Wushuang left the garden. On an empty ground within the Wushuang city, many figures were waiting. Some were standing while others sat cross-legged. Most of them came from the ancient god clan. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang appeared in front of these people. Ancient God Emperor. Greetings, Ancient God Emperor. The experts from the Special Tribes Alliance greeted Jian Wushuang with fanaticism. Many people were not convinced that Jian Wushuang was a competent leader initially. It could be because of his human bloodline. However, after the Great Battle, everyone within the Special Tribes Alliance and Sanctuary Alliance trusted him fully. This was especially the case for the Special Tribes Alliance. They only listened to someone very powerful. Jian Wushuang was definitely an incredibly powerful expert. Jian Wushuang looked at everyone and said, I want to speak to Black Dragon Emperor personally. Can all of you please give us some space? King Chen Xin, King Luo Yu and the rest were stunned. They looked at Jian Wushuang oddly before they walked off. Jian Wushuang and Black Dragon Emperor were left alone on the empty ground. Ancient God Emperor, Black Dragon Emperor smiled at Jen Wushuang. She was in black clothes and was stunning. Her crystal clear skin was showing under her black clothes, which attracted the attention of many males. She also had an extremely cold aura. Without a doubt, she was extremely beautiful and attractive. Attractive to the point where even great emperors would fall for her. Black Dragon Emperor, I have heard that you visited me frequently during the time I was in slumber. I know of your feelings and I thank you for that. Jen Wushuang looked at Black Dragon Emperor and said. Black Dragon Emperor trembled slightly when she heard of this. Most people could have deduced that she had feelings for Jen Wushuang given how she had acted over the years. Black Dragon Emperor admired Jen Wushuang greatly. She believed that Jen Wushuang knew about it. However, Jen Wushuang did not speak about it at all. Now, he was talking about it. Black Dragon Emperor took a deep breath and looked at Jen Wushuang fondly and in anticipation. Her admiration for him was very clear. She was waiting for his reply. Black Dragon Emperor, you should know that I already have a wife, Jen Wushuang said. Yes. But from what I heard, she left a long time ago, Black Dragon Emperor said. During the time Jen Wushuang had been in slumber, she had gone and inquired about everything related to Jen Wushuang, including the fact that Jen Wushuang had a wife. She only left, but is not dead. I will find her sooner or later and bring her back, Jen Wushuang said firmly. I don't mind, Black Dragon Emperor smiled. Jen Wushuang knitted his eyebrows. He did not expect Black Dragon Emperor to be so persistent. He looked at Black Dragon Emperor in the eye and said, I will not love a second person in my life. Hence, sorry. When the word sorry came out of Jen Wushuang's mouth, Black Dragon Emperor trembled and she turned pale. After a while, she looked up at Jen Wushuang. Her expression was not of pain or disappointment. She smiled at Jen Wushuang and said, I understand. Sorry for all the trouble, Ancient God Emperor. I will not trouble you anymore after today. She bowed slightly to Jen Wushuang before leaving. She left very quickly, as though she was running away from Jen Wushuang. Jen Wushuang stood there, looking at the back view of the Black Dragon Emperor. Even though he did not want to do this, all he could do was to shake his head. There was no way a forced relationship would work. Jen Wushuang already had someone in his heart. It was his wife, Lung Wushuang. Even if his wife died, she would forever be his wife. Furthermore, his wife was still alive and there was still a chance he could reunite with her. There was no way Jen Wushuang could see himself having two wives at the same time. After the Black Dragon Emperor left, the other experts from the Special Tribes Alliance walked up to him. They could figure out what had happened after they saw Black Dragon Emperor leaving the place. They could only sigh at the bottom of their hearts. Ancient God Emperor, isn't it a little too cruel to reject her so directly? King Chen Xin asked. Cruel? It might be cruel, but it's for the best, Jen Wushuang shook his head and said. Hearing this, the experts all nodded their heads. All right everyone. Go back to your own tribes. As for the Green Fire World, the experts from the Special Tribes Alliance too can come here as long as they obey the rules, Jen Wushuang said. King Chen Xin, I will not return to the Ancient God Clan for the time being. Please handle the internal matters together with King Luo Yu. If anything serious happens, you always can transmit a message to me. Yes. King Chen Xin and the other experts nodded their heads and left. Jen Wushuang was alone on the empty ground. Jen Wushuang took a deep breath and sighed, things will get messy if I drag it out. It is better if it is settled now. After shaking his head, Jen Wushuang whipped out the transmission token Emperor Bai had passed to him. Lord Emperor 13. Jen Wushuang transmitted a message over. You awakened? Emperor 13 asked calmly, or rather, coldly. Yes, Jen Wushuang replied as he nodded his head. Come to the place where we first met. I will wait for you there, Emperor 13 said and stopped the transmission. The place where we first met? Chillywind Valley? Jen Wushuang raised his eyebrows as he smiled. He explained his plans to Wang Yuan and Jen Nantian before he left. Chillywind Valley, one of the special places on the ancient battlefield. Jen Wushuang was the first person to discover this place. He had come to explore this place several times, but he could never figure this place out. When he had explored the place after he had attained the battle power of an almighty, he had met Emperor 13. He had gotten a shock back then when Emperor 13 had appeared out of nowhere. Soon, Jian Wushuang reached the Ou Thankserts of Chilliwind Valley. Chapter 2206 Inside the Head. Inside Chilliwind Valley, in the endless large dark hole. Chill wind was blowing everywhere. Jian Wushuang recalled that when he was here for the first time, he had almost died to the chill winds. Now, the chill wind posed no threat to him. In the air above Chilliwind Valley stood a man in a white cloak. Lord Emperor 13. Jian Wushuang greeted as he bowed lightly. Emperor 13 looked at Jian Wushuang and said, "Follow me." Emperor 13 dashed into the Chilliwind Valley. Even though Jian Wushuang had many unanswered questions, he dashed in without hesitation. Jian Wushuang followed behind Emperor 13 as they traveled at terrifying speed. A while later, Jian Wushuang saw these gigantic, white jades. "Have we reached the bottom of the Chilliwind Valley?" Jian Wushuang asked. This was where he met Emperor 13 for the first time. He had been surprised by Emperor 13 when they first met. Jian Wushuang was surprised when he saw Emperor 13 maintain his speed even as they approached these jades. Boom! The jades opened up and created a pathway for Emperor 13 to pass through. What? This is not the bottom of the valley? Jian Wushuang was astonished. He had initially thought that they had reached the bottom of the valley. This was not the case. He followed Emperor 13 deeper into the valley. The further they went, the more surprised Jian Wushuang became. Chilliwind Valley is far too deep. Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. From the entrance of Chilliwind Valley to where he was then, they had at least traveled tens of millions of kilometers, yet they were still not at the bottom of the valley. They were not close to the bottom either, as the way forward was still pitch black. Even though Jian Wushuang was surprised, he maintained his speed. Another 7 minutes or so passed. Finally, they reached the bottom of the valley. Is this where the bottom of the valley truly lies? Jian Wushuang scanned his surroundings. The ground was scarlet red, just like a human's flesh. There were clouds of bloody mist around him. The most obvious structure was another passageway at one side. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes when he saw this passageway. The Chilliwind Valley was not too far away from Greenfire World, and Greenfire World was located at the center of the forehead of a humongous head. The head was the most unbelievable thing Jian Wushuang had ever seen. Chilliwind Valley was located right below the head. He followed Emperor 13 all the way down to the point that Jian Wushuang forgot how far he had traveled before he got here. He knew that he was inside the head. No matter if it was Greenfire World or the other unique sites of opportunity, they were located at the surface of the head. Now, Jian Wushuang entered the inside of that head. What would he find inside the head? Jian Wushuang's mind was racing. The head was the most valuable and mysterious place compared to the rest of the ancient battlefield. When Jian Wushuang looked through the formation on this head, the cultivators from the Greenfire World did try to enter this head and explore the interior, but to no avail. The furthest they could go was about a few million kilometers, as the skin of this head was extremely tough. Today, he had reached the interior of the head. "Let's go," Emperor 13 said coldly as he walked into the passageway. Jian Wushuang thought to himself silently for a moment before following Emperor 13. The passageway was very big. The first noticeable things were the crimson walls at both sides. Jian Wushuang knew that he was inside a real head. He could not help and muttered to himself, "Are these walls really made out of flesh and blood?" He walked along the passageway for a short while. An open space appeared in Jian Wushuang's vision. On this open ground stood many crimson statues. When these statues saw Emperor 13 and Jian Wushuang walking over towards them, they turned alive as their crimson eyes opened. They were filled with killing intent as these eyes turned towards Jian Wushuang and Emperor 13. An extremely strong sense of danger rose in Jian Wushuang's heart when he saw these crimson eyes. He was startled. These statues, Jian Wushuang was sure that every single one of these statues was extremely powerful. Luckily, These statues did not attack and only looked at them once before closing their eyes. This could have been because of Emperor 13. Emperor 13 led the way forward as he walked past all of these statues. These statues should be the guardians of this passageway, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. In the ancient past, experts would have left special measures in their caves or sites of opportunities. Just like the expert from the ancient past, Wu Hun, he had left behind many Dao soldiers around him to stop the weaker cultivators from entering to startle him. In this passageway that Emperor 13 had brought Jian Wushuang through, they were within the humongous head. All the valuable secrets should be hidden here, hence, there should contain several measures along the way. Apart from the crimson statues, Jian Wushuang saw numerous special measures. There were many sophisticated formations, traps, and even more guards. When the guards deeper in the passageway opened its eyes, Jian Wushuang's head went blank. These guards must have unimaginable power. With these measures, it would be impossible for even great emperors to enter. They would most probably die. Even if the emperor by entered, he might be able to survive due to his unique constitution, but he would never reach the deepest part of the passageway. The only reason Jian Wushuang could reach so far in was because of Emperor 13. At the end of the passageway was the core of the humongous head. Here, it was a vast, dark space. This dark space was limitless and endless. At the center of this dark space, a province floated peacefully. Chapter 2207 Ancient Display Whoosh, whoosh. Emperor 13 and Jian Wushuang appeared on this floating land. Once he set foot on the land, Jian Wushuang looked up and saw a platform. This platform was extremely big. There were 99,999 steps leading up to the platform. At the end of the steps, at the top of the platform, stood a throne. There was a figure sitting on this throne. It was a bold man with sharp eyebrows. His eyes looked as though they were the sun and moon. He sat there, looking down at everything with dignity. It was as though everything in this world submitted to him and he was the sole ruler of this world. Jian Wushuang stared at the bold man on top of the platform. That man looked familiar as his facial features were the same as the gigantic head. Without a doubt, this was the owner of that gigantic head. Suddenly, the man who sat on the throne looked down at Jian Wushuang. His eyes were moving slowly as though they were a galaxy. Under that stare, Jian Wushuang felt that the world lost its colors. The surrounding scene started to change quickly. He was looking at the highest point in this world. Here, it was as though he was standing beside heaven. Here, he saw the same bold man. This man was unimaginably large. Is this how big he really is? Jian Wushuang was stunned. The size of the head was already gigantic. Green Fire World was at the center of the forehead, but its size was negligible compared to the rest of the head. If the head was already this big, then how big was his whole body? Jian Wushuang looked at the complete divine body of this bold man. He was amazed. At this moment, Jian Wushuang noticed that this place was surrounded by thunderous clouds as a unique aura gathered and started to suppress him. It tried to tear him apart and annihilate him. This aura was heaven's will. This bold man was making an enemy with heaven's will. Suddenly, the bold man looked up and his eyes burned with determination. I will fight the heavens, I will fight the earth. I will fight this world just to attain the ultimate doctrine. If the heavens were to stop me, I would tear them apart. If the earth were to stop me, I would split it apart. If everyone in this world were to stop me, I would kill everyone. His majestic words forced the surrounding heavens will back a great distance. You could hear the angry roars and shoutings, but none dared to continue their suppression. Jian Wushuang was stunned. His head was dizzy at this unbelievable scene. The man's words were ringing in his ears. If the heavens were to stop me, I would tear them apart. If the earth were to stop me, I would split it apart. If everyone in this world were to stop me, I would kill everyone. How domineering was that? How much confidence did that man have? A single look forced back the heavens' will. In front of him, even heaven's will had to give way. Boom. Jian Wushuang was still in shock as the scene changed. This time, it was the scene of a vast battlefield. The battle had long started on this battlefield. The entire sky was tinted crimson red. The heavens at the highest point of the battlefield had many cracks as water was leaking out from it. It was evident that there was a hole in the heavens. On the ground below, worlds started to crumble as infinite amounts of living things were annihilated and died instantly. Many super-powerful experts died in this battle. Many of their bodies turned into mountains or seas of blood. This was the ancient battlefield, and this was the ultimate battle that had caused the end of the ancient past era. The battle was nearing the end. Many of the experts who were battling it out crazily stopped. At the center of the battlefield stood a humongous, bold man. A spear pierced through his chest and heart. This spear contained an incredible corrosive power which continuously corroded his divine body. This injury should have been fatal. However, he stood tall even though there was a spear through his body. The heavens will continually suppressed him from above. He scanned his surroundings. Everything within his vision subsided. Aside from the suppression from heaven's will, trillions of experts in the divine demon realm and countless experts stood there, staring at him with great killing intent. There were 3 people at the front. The first man was a bald man in white cloak. He was constantly smiling and was barefooted. He stood there in the sunlight as white light flashed off his skin. He gave off a peaceful and holy vibe. The second person was a woman in a crimson cloak. She had an extremely cold vibe and felt like no one could compare to her. She was just standing there, but many of the experts in the divine demon realm wanted to bow down to her. The last man was a demon king of his era. He wore purple armor and had a very big body. He held a crimson spear and was standing on top of his crimson dragon. He radiated a demonic aura. These 3 experts fixed their gazes on the bold man with great killing intent. They were ready to deliver the killing blow. Right then, the bold man said majestically, "I lived my life proudly. How can I die at the hands of mere mortals like you? Die along with me." As soon as he finished speaking, his incredibly gigantic divine body started to crumble, starting from his limbs. Only his head was left. Then, a terrifying power swept forth in all directions. The entire ancient battlefield threatened to crumble. Heavens will dissipated and heaven cracked into pieces. The entire earth shattered. It was an apocalypse. Chapter 2208 Heaven Suppressing Monument. Jian Wushuang looked closely at whatever he was shown. The heavens cracked and countless divine demon experts died. Suddenly, everything flickered and turned dark. Jian Wushuang returned to the floating province with 99,999 steps. This is. Jian Wushuang turned pale. He just came out from the ancient display. However, he did not finish watching the second scroll of the ancient display. He only saw the bold man's divine body explode after casting certain techniques. This caused heaven and earth to crack and shatter. Jian Wushuang had no idea what happened next. What happened after this? After this bold man died, what happened to those who attacked him? And about the heaven's will, Jian Wushuang's heart twitched when he thought about this. That was the first time he felt the real heaven's will. He could sense there were rules of order within the eternal chaotic world, but the heaven's will was of even higher level. Who could be at the level to understand and use heaven's will? Only the superpowers back in the ancient past who became so powerful that even heaven and earth disapproved of his existence. Then would the heavens will come and suppress that expert personally. Who was that bold man in the ancient display who could force heaven's will to dissipate with one look? How powerful must he be? Jian Wushuang took a cold breath when he thought of this. You should have seen those things. Emperor 13 looked over and said, "Yes." Jian Wushuang said. Right when he was about to ask more questions, Emperor 13 continued. "I know that you have a lot of questions right now. I cannot and will not answer any of them. When the time is right, you will know everything." Jian Wushuang was caught by surprise, but he did not proceed with raising his doubts. Emperor 13 looked up at the bold man and waved his hand. A unique energy radiated out towards that man. The energy fused with the dark space. Then, a streak of brilliant light was seen in the dark space. This streak of light began to enlarge before revealing its true colors. It was a gigantic, gray monument. It was 10,000 feet high and was made up of gray crystals that was not ever seen before by Jian Wushuang. The gray monument floated in the dark space and soon moved in front of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang studied the monument but could not see anything. It was a blank monument as it had no inscriptions at all. It was an ordinary monument. However, Jian Wushuang knew that this monument was definitely extraordinary as it was hidden so well in the depth of the head. This is the heaven-suppressing monument. There are 9 of them in this world. One of such monuments is an extremely high-grade treasure. If you managed to gather all 9, you can suppress the heavens and earth, Emperor 13 said with a flash of excitement in his eyes. Jian Wushuang was stunned. He just saw the ancient display and knew for sure that heaven's will was something that is real and present in this world. If Emperor 13 said that one could suppress the heavens and earth, did he mean it could suppress heaven's will? Jian Wushuang took a cold breath when he thought of this. The heaven-suppressing monument is very special and contains many extremely profound and complicated hidden secrets. It is extremely useful for you. I will activate the hidden secrets within the monument. You should stand here and try to understand them. Emperor 13 said. Understand them? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Given how powerful the heaven-suppressing monument was, how amazing were the secrets it contained. Emperor 13 activating the hidden secrets within the monument was like giving him an opportunity for him to become even stronger. Jian Wushuang had many burning questions, but he ignored them all and started to prepare to understand the hidden secrets. Remember, you only have one chance. How much you can understand depends on you. Emperor 13 said as he started to form seals with his hands and placing them onto the monument. Instantly, the monument, which was 10,000 feet tall, radiated a special aura. At the same time, a gray air current appeared. The gray air current seemed extremely mysterious. Anyone who recognized it would be in disbelief. This air current was rare even in the ancient past. It was the air of chaos. Air of chaos was one of the things that the experts from the ancient past sought after crazily. The air that gushed out of the monument was the air of chaos. Hum tilde hum tilde hum tilde. The air of chaos started to drift towards Jian Wushuang as it completely surrounded him like a cocoon. This is. Jian Wushuang widened his eyes in surprise as he stared at the air that was surrounding him. Even though he could not recognize the air, he could feel how pure and concentrated the energy which was contained in the air was. Never had he seen any energy so pure. Without hesitation, he started channeling the heavenly creation skill. As this skill continued to be channeled, all the air of chaos was absorbed through his pores and was converted into his own divine power. My divine power is improving at such a fast rate. Jian Wushuang clenched his fist in excitement. He could feel that he was getting stronger at an extremely fast rate. This speed was not achievable with just self-meditation or any random treasure. The rate of improvement was not so great back when Jian Wushuang was meditating beside the Supreme Emperor Stone. However, this gray airflow was not the truly valuable opportunity. Jian Wushuang looked up and stared at the 10,000 feet tall heaven-suppressing monument. Originally, this monument had no inscriptions at all. Slowly, ancient inscriptions started to appear at the top of the monument. It was gold in color, in a language Jian Wushuang had never seen before. This was completely different from any language there was in the eternal chaotic world. These words were not a unique language from the ancient past. There were many ancient past battlefields left behind in the eternal chaotic world, many of which contained certain ancient languages. These ancient languages had some resemblance to the modern languages the people of the eternal chaotic world use. Jian Wushuang would recognize them if he saw it. However, Jian Wushuang could not recognize these words at all. Chapter 2209 Breakthrough. What are these words? Jian Wushuang was staring intently at the words that appeared at the top of the monument. These words appeared slowly as one stroke appeared at a time. Jian Wushuang was infatuated with these inscriptions. In his eyes, these were not words. They were a whole world. He saw a whole new world within these words. Within that world, there was chaos and no elements at all. However, evolution started to happen as the chaos slowly evolved into mountains, rivers, and the earth. These would eventually make a new world. They were the foundation of that world. Only after the world was made then life would appear within this world. In the dark space, Zhen Wushuang stood on the floating province. His divine body was surrounded by the air of chaos as it gushed into his body steadily. The 10,000-foot-tall heaven-suppressing monument floated in front of him. On the heaven-suppressing monument, ancient words colored in gold appeared slowly and sequentially. The number of words started to increase slowly. Even though these were words inscribed into the monument, what Zhen Wushuang saw was the evolution of a whole new world. He was infatuated with this process and was immersed in it. Emperor 13 sat cross-legged beside him before closing his eyes. Time started to pass. The number of inscriptions on the monument started to increase as time passed. Every hour or so, a new word would appear on the monument. This monument was 10,000 feet tall. Hence, tens of thousands of ancient words were nothing as compared to its huge size, much less one of these words. Millions of such inscriptions could fit onto the heaven-suppressing monument. Time passed quickly. After a very long time, the golden inscriptions finally covered every corner of the heaven-suppressing monument. The heaven-suppressing monument had no more room to fit any more inscriptions into. Soon, the last inscription was done. Zhen Wushuang, who was immersed in the evolution of that world, heard a boom within his heart before the world he was immersed in finally crumbled as his consciousness returned to the real world. He looked at the heaven-suppressing monument once again and was in disbelief when he saw the countless number of golden inscriptions. Unbelievable. This heaven-suppressing monument is definitely made by an unbelievable technique, Zhen Wushuang thought as he clenched his fists. Without a doubt, the heaven-suppressing monument was a precious treasure. Even the mountain river map could not compare. Within the heaven-suppressing monument, he saw the evolution of a whole new world. From the beginning of the world, when everything was complete chaos, to finally when life was born. Zhen Wushuang had seen the entire process as he meditated at the heaven-suppressing monument. How incredible was that? It was a pity that Zhen Wushuang had only seen up to the point the first life had come about and the scene had ended. This might have been because there was only one heaven-suppressing monument. He guessed that he needed to gather all 9 heaven-suppressing monuments before he could finally see the entire process. Sigh. He exhaled lightly before he looked around. He saw Emperor 13 opening his eyes, looking at him. "You are awake." Emperor 13 spoke, cold as ever. "Yes. Emperor 13, how long have I been here, meditating?" 1,081 years, Emperor 13 said. "What?" Zhen Wushuang was shocked. It was not because he felt that 1,081 years was long. He had lived for tens of thousands of years. He had been in slumber for 24,000 years. 1,000 years was nothing compared to that. The reason why he was shocked was because he felt that time had barely passed after he had started meditation to the evolution of the world. He thought he would take a very short while, maybe around half a day. However, 1,081 years had passed. So much time has passed. Zhen Wushuang exclaimed. He finally understood how the experts from the eternal chaotic world could meditate tens of thousands of years at one go. When an expert at that level used all his heart to meditate, he would not feel time had passed even though tens of thousands of years had gone. You should check out what changed within you. You should have benefited greatly during these 1,000 years, Emperor 13 said. Zhen Wushuang was stunned before he checked his own body out. He first looked at his divine power. During the time he had been meditating, the grey airflow had been absorbed by him continuously and turned into divine power. His divine power should have improved greatly. Once he checked that out, he was pleasantly surprised. I broke through? Zhen Wushuang widened his eyes in surprise as elation was written all over his face. With Zhen Wushuang's fighting power and attitude, any normal improvement would not have resulted in such a big expression of emotion. But now, he could not help it, his improvement was too great. The divine power within his body was near to 10 times the original. His divine power was already almost limitless and could allow him to reform his body a couple of times. Now that amount of divine power had increased by 10 times. It was not just the amount of divine power, but also the quality of it. His divine power had just evolved. Jian Wushuang had been dreaming of this for a very long time. This evolution was not through any secret skills or techniques. He needed to acquire it through a breakthrough. The evolution would only occur when he broke through from the second phase of inverse cultivation to the third phase. Yes. Jian Wushuang had broken through. During the 1081 years, he had continuously absorbed the air of chaos into his body to turn into divine power. His divine power had increased at an insane rate. Furthermore, one only needed more divine power to break through from the second phase to the third phase. While he was meditating, his divine power had met the required standard and he had broken through. Now, he was in the third phase of the seventh step inverse cultivation. This was the ultimate phase. Chapter 22 10 Sword Doctrine Trial Tower Ultimate phase of 7th step inverse cultivation. Jian Wushuang clenched his fist, excited. Even though it was a mere one-phase difference between the second phase and the ultimate phase, the difference in power was glaring. Based on the amount of divine power there was, it was as though there was an ocean of divine power within Jian Wushuang. With such a vast amount of divine power, it would be extremely difficult to kill him as he too had the perfect chaotic holy body. His divine power and divine body were 10 times as powerful as before. His combat power erupted. With his current power, he could easily kill great emperors using strength alone. The ultimate phase of the 7th step inverse cultivation gave one power far greater than what a great emperor could possess. The power was equivalent to that of an expert in the realm of divine demon. Emperor Bai reached the ultimate phase of the 7th step inverse cultivation and was the strongest in this world. However, Emperor Bai was strong not only because of this, but because he managed to grasp a little of the rules of order. Rules of order, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself as he opened his palms slowly. Both palms were outstretched as he channeled 2 unique energies at the center of his palm. These 2 energies evolved from the power of space-time and the reincarnation power. However, a glint of excitement flashed across his eyes when Jian Wushuang looked at these 2 types of energies. Rules of order, this is the rules of order. Rules of order. Jian Wushuang roared with laughter. That's right. The 2 types of energies in his palm were the space-time rule of order and reincarnation rules of order. He now had control over both powers. During the 1081 days, he had been completely immersed in the evolution of heaven and earth. Before heaven and earth could evolve, the rules of order had to come about first. The rules of heaven and earth was the highest form of power in this world. The Supreme Four Doctrine and the 9 Heaven God Doctrine would evolve and eventually form rules of order. The rules of heaven and earth would branch off into these Supreme Four Doctrine and 9 Heaven God Doctrine to form everything there was in the world. Jian Wushuang had seen the evolution clearly during the 1081 years he had meditated. Not only did he see, but he also felt and understood the evolution process. After he understood the process, he tried it himself and managed to master the space-time rule of order and the reincarnation rules of order. Jian Wushuang had finally grasped the rules of order, and he grasped 2 different types of rules or order. Even though his understanding was minimal, he had still managed to grasp it, which had helped him evolve to become stronger. I am in the same realm as Emperor Bai. Both of us are in the ultimate phase of the 7th step inverse cultivation, and both of us have a grasp of the rules of order. However, I have grasped 2 rules of order and have the complete ancient god bloodline power. If I combined the power of them all, Jian Wushuang smiled. Jian Wushuang had the lead based on raw power and understanding of rules of order. As for the secret skills, Emperor Bai cultivated the 9-star armor from the 7-star black sect and was at the golden armor scripture. This secret skill was very powerful. Furthermore, he had cultivated another very powerful secret skill. It was a pity that he did not have the complete version of the secret skill, hence he could not use the skill to its fullest potential. After the Great War, Emperor 13 had handed him the complete version of the secret skill. Now, he could maximize the power of the secret skill. It had been 24,000 years since the Great War was over, and Emperor 13 handed Emperor Bai the complete version of the secret skill. Emperor Bai should have successfully cultivated this skill to become even stronger. Hence, Emperor Bai had mastered several incredible secret skills and techniques. Jian Wushuang was not too shabby either. He had the top-tier secret skill from the ancient god clan, the immemorial celestial body. He had cultivated the second scripture, which would boost his fighting power greatly. As for the other secret skill, moon-picking skill, it too was extremely powerful. As for secret skills of Star Palace, that was one of the trump cards Jian Wushuang had, and that could enable him to destroy all foes. As for treasures, he had the Mountain River Map and the Soul-Swallowing Pearl, two high-grade treasures. The Mountain River Map could suppress everything. On the other hand, the Soul-Swallowing Pearl could be used with his soul attack to create an extremely powerful attack which could threaten even Emperor Bai. The overall battle power of Jian Wushuang would not be weaker than Emperor Bai's. To really differentiate who was more powerful, they needed to have a battle. If I have the chance in the future, I really want to spar with Emperor Bai, Jian Wushuang smiled eerily. Jian Wushuang had benefited greatly from the 1,080 years he spent meditating. Right then, Emperor 13 stood up. He held out his right hand, which contained an ancient, black tower. Emperor 13 tossed this tower in front of him. This tower enlarged and soon, it turned into a large tower in front of Jian Wushuang. Emperor 13, this is. Jian Wushuang looked at the black tower, puzzled. This tower radiated an ancient and majestic aura. Without a doubt, this tower was an incredible treasure. This is the Sword Doctrine Trial Tower. I made this personally a long time ago. However, I am not gifted as a blacksmith, hence it was just an ordinary treasure back in the past. You should be able to benefit from it greatly now if you try to venture inside, Emperor 13 said. Sword Doctrine Trial Tower? Is it a trail tower targeting one's understanding of the sword doctrine? Jian Wushuang asked as he squinted his eyes. The restrictions in this world are far too powerful. I can only guarantee you 1,000 years inside. Treasure the time you have inside, Emperor 13 said and explained no further. Jian Wushuang was tempted. He knew this black tower was extraordinary. Furthermore, this tower had been made by Emperor 13 personally to target the sword doctrine, which should benefit him greatly. Jian Wushuang stopped hesitating as he dashed inside the tower. After he entered the tower, he realized he was in the middle of a vast, dark space. It seemed like there was no end to the space. It was big enough for battles to occur in. My strength and bloodline power are restricted. I cannot use them freely, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself as he squinted his eyes. He realized that his divine power was being suppressed to the level of an ordinary expert in the divine demon realm. At the same time, he realized he could not use his bloodline power at all. Chapter 22:11 Amateur. Within the vast dark space, figures started to form in front of Jian Wushuang. A young man who had a devilish look, appeared. He held a long sword as he stared at Jian Wushuang with his emotionless eyes. Then, whoosh! This young man attacked. He appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and slashed with his long sword. This slash looked normal and it contained no sword skill. However, this ordinary slash was extremely fast with the power of a divine demon and some rules of order. Is he my opponent? Jian Wushuang stared at the devilish young man and smiled lightly. I also managed to master rules or order but am not familiar with it yet. I should take this chance to familiarize myself with this new power. Jian Wushuang attacked as he slashed his Blood Mountain sword. This slash contained the power of a divine demon and the spacetime rules of order. Clang! Both long swords collided with equal power. The moment the swords collided, the devilish young man flicked his sword up in a weird manner as the sword was headed for his wrist. Jian Wushuang was caught by surprise as he quickly drew back his sword in response. Right then, the devilish young man used a little strength and the sword was headed for Jian Wushuang's throat at lightning speed. What? Jian Wushuang turned pale. At first, He knew that the devilish young man was not a simple opponent, as his sword skills were simple and smooth. However, after they started sparring, he realized all these simple moves flowed extremely smoothly. He was perfect. Jian Wushuang was suppressed by the simple sword skill. A slash, a flick, a stab, a jab. Jian Wushuang finally turned serious. A unique sword essence radiated out from him. It was as though he had turned into a large, dark vortex. Sword principle Xian Luo. Mixed elements spirit. Clang, 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 clang. Collisions between the metallic blades could be heard clearly. Jian Wushuang had already used the sword skill, mixed element spirit, to its full potential, while his opponent simply used ordinary attacks. Within the eternal chaotic world, any cultivators who cultivated the sword doctrine could cast these attacks easily. However, Jian Wushuang was completely suppressed by these simple attacks. The mixed element spirit he was casting was wonderfully refined. However, even this sword skill could barely fend off those simple attacks. Jian Wushuang could only retreat slowly. His sword skills were completely suppressed and he could not even use them to their full potential. Suddenly, clang! After a flurry of attacks, the sword that the devilish man held slashed across Jian Wushuang's wrist as the wrist was sliced off, together with the Blood Mountain sword. The devilish young man then stopped his attacks. Jian Wushuang stood there in the dark space in disbelief. He looked at the wound on his right hand before regenerating the hand immediately after channeling his divine power. He was overcome by waves of shock and disbelief. How can this be? How can such simple attacks suppress me? I was completely suppressed and not able to fight back at all. Are those really just simple attacks? Jian Wushuang was shaken to the core. His understanding of the sword doctrine was already extremely high. This was the case in the eternal chaotic world. He was the most powerful sword cultivator. The other almighties who excelled in sword doctrines were no match for him. Jian Wushuang too thought that his understanding of the sword doctrine was extremely deep. Back in the Blood Emperor sanctuary grounds, he had been unable to suppress the Blood Emperor even though he had the superior power advantage. He then realized his experience in battle was nothing compared to that of the experts from the ancient past. He had to admit that even though there were incredible sword skills in this era, it was nothing compared to those from the ancient past. He had never thought that he would lose to someone who had equal power to him, and only used the basic attacks. And he was completely suppressed. His sword skills were like those of a kid compared to those of the devilish young man. It was laughable. Right then. Jian Wushuang. Your sword skills and understanding of the sword doctrine might be top tier in the first era. However, back in the ancient past, your understanding of the sword doctrine would be far too weak. You were not even qualified to be called a sword doctrine cultivator. You are an amateur. Emperor 13's voice appeared in the dark space. Amateur? Jian Wushuang was stunned. If the experts from the eternal chaotic world heard that their sword emperor was being called an amateur, there would be a great commotion. One of the strongest men in the eternal chaotic world, the man who was famous for his sword skills, Jian Wushuang. But in the eyes of Emperor 13, he was just an amateur. Everyone would usually look down on the person who said that, but Emperor 13 was the one who said it. Those who saw the battle between Emperor 13 and Blood Emperor, including Jian Wushuang, could not refute this. You are an amateur. You don't even know what sword doctrine truly is. You do not need too much style, nor too much power. A person who does not know much about sword doctrine can only unleash 10% of an extremely powerful sword skill, but a person who understands what sword doctrine truly is can unleash incredible power with just a simple skill. In your case, you are the former, Emperor 13 said. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang laughed bitterly. I never thought that my understanding of the sword doctrine was so laughable. This is not to blame you. In this era, the most powerful expert is only in the peak chaotic realm. Rules of order is far too high level for most of you as all of you live under the restrictions in this world. It is far too difficult to experience what sword doctrine truly is, Emperor 13 continued. It was true. Jian Wushuang was the strongest sword user in this era. The experts in this era were far too weak. If they had been born in the ancient past, The sword doctrine Zhen Wushuang would see or experience would be far more than in the eternal chaotic world. Chapter 22:12 Sword Doctrine. The Sword Doctrine Trial Tower can allow you to experience the higher form of sword doctrine. Just like your first opponent, he is considered a beginner in sword doctrine. If you can defeat him with your sword skills alone, you will be considered a beginner as well, Emperor 13 said. He is considered a beginner. Zhen Wushuang looked at the devilish young man fiercely. He waved his hand as the Blood Mountain sword flew back into his hand. Let's go. Without hesitation, Zhen Wushuang attacked once again. He battled the young man fiercely with all the sword skills he knew. Before long, he had lost again. Zhen Wushuang was not discouraged and he attacked again. He was completely immersed in his battle against the young man with a devilish look. Even though there was a large gap between the understanding of sword doctrine between the two, Zhen Wushuang realized he had begun to understand more about the sword doctrine after multiple sparring sessions. Sword skill can be cast in this manner. Coherence, smooth. A simple sword skill can be more powerful as compared to some top-tier ones. Sword, it can be used like this. Zhen Wushuang was a fast learner. He lost countless times against the devilish young man. He would always learn something from each and every defeat, whether it was from his battle techniques or from his sword skills. Or he would figure out certain techniques the young man would use in his sword skills and learn from it. Even though he was being suppressed in every manner, he was constantly learning from his opponent and slowly becoming a stronger cultivator. After 3 years, Zhen Wushuang still lost to the devilish young man, but was no longer suppressed. 5 years later, the devilish young man could only suppress Zhen Wushuang in the form of sword skills. Even though Zhen Wushuang's defeat was inevitable, it would take longer before he was actually defeated. 17 years later, Zhen Wushuang could fight the devilish young man evenly head-on. 32 years later. Clang. Sparks were created as the long swords collided against each other. Zhen Wushuang charged forward as the long sword in his hand turned into lightning and stabbed towards his opponent. The speed was too fast to be described with words. Clang. The tip of the blade collided with the body of the devilish young man. The blade did not pierce his body, but the impact caused him to lose balance and stumble a few steps backwards. After he steadied himself, the devilish young man looked at Zhen Wushuang. This time, he did not attack. At the same time, his body started to evaporate. Looks like I finally defeated him. A hint of joy was seen in Zhen Wushuang's eyes as he saw the body of the devilish young man start to evaporate. Up till today, he had been inside the Sword Doctrine Trial Tower for 32 years. During this time, he had been constantly battling the devilish young man. They had fought over tens of thousands of times. Initially, he had been completely suppressed. After all these years of hard work, Zhen Wushuang had finally defeated the devilish young man. There had been great improvements in Zhen Wushuang's sword skills and his understanding of the sword doctrine was a level higher compared to before. The reason why I can defeat him is not just because I have a better understanding of the sword doctrine. I have with me sword principle Shen Luo, which was one of the most powerful sword principles back in the ancient past. This helped me out greatly during our battles. If I were to use the most simple sword skills, I would need some more time before I could defeat him with the simple skills, Zhen Wushuang muttered to himself. However, he could still go even against the devilish young man if he only used the most simple sword skills. According to Emperor 13, he should be a beginner in sword doctrine. From an amateur to a beginner, Zhen Wushuang exclaimed. In the space in front of him, another figure started to form slowly. This time, his opponent was a graceful lady in white cloak. She had a cold gaze. This was his second opponent in the Sword Doctrine Trial Tower. Her sword skills were much stronger compared to the devilish young man's. Soon, the lady in white cloak attacked. Zhen Wushuang fought back, but was defeated easily. On the floating piece of land, the ancient, black Sword Doctrine Trial Tower stood tall. Emperor 13 sat down cross-legged again. He looked at the tower as his vision turned cloudy. Sword Doctrine. There is no end to the sword doctrine. Even though I reached the peak of the sword doctrine, I still feel that my understanding is not complete. What exactly is the perfect sword doctrine? Emperor 13 muttered to himself before closing his eyes slowly. He had reached the peak of the sword doctrine. Even during the prime time during the ancient past, few could have reached the level he had. There was almost no one who was stronger than him in the aspect of sword doctrine. Even so, he was still trying to chase after a better or higher form of sword doctrine. There was no limit to the doctrine. This was also the case for sword doctrine. Jian Wushuang, who was in the sword doctrine trial tower, was immersed in the battles he had with countless number of opponents. He was learning from his imperfections during these battles. Time continued to pass. 1,000 years flashed by in the blink of an eye. The sword doctrine trial tower still stood tall in the vast, dark space. Two figures were engaged in a heated battle. Jian Wushuang held his sword single-handedly. He did not use the secret skill of the ancient god clan to have 9 heads and 18 arms. To him now, having 18 arms and swords had no difference compared to holding one single sword on one hand. Having too many hands became a burden. He moved his sword around casually. It could be a thrust, or a slash, or a flick. Each move was smooth and decisive. He moved around elegantly and gracefully as he cast his sword skills. His vision was sharp and focused. His opponent was an elder with red hair. The sword skills of this elder were extremely fast and violent. Jian Wushuang was extremely calm in this battle. During the heated exchange, he was trying his best to find his opponent's weakness. After a while, the red-haired man slashed his sword. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up when he saw this move. He swung the sword in his hands as it thrust out in an eerie manner. Sword Principle Shen Luo. Sanguis Extremis Style. PFFTT. A bloody mist erupted from the elder man's chest as he backed off. This is the 16th one, Jian Wushuang smiled. Chapter 22:13 Fighting power skyrocketed. Jian Wushuang spent 1,000 years inside the sword doctrine trial tower sparring against other experts. Jian Wushuang had lost count of how many battles he had fought. However, he knew his sword skills were improving at a tremendous rate. No other opportunities could help him improve at such a great rate. This was because he was fighting against an expert of a completely new level. It was as though these experts had opened a new door to sword doctrine. There had been a leap in his sword skills and his understanding of sword doctrine compared to before. Jian Wushuang felt that he could kill his old self with one simple slash. That was how much he had improved. In the dark space, a space tunnel appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Looks like I took exactly 1,000 years to defeat 16 opponents. Jian Wushuang smiled as he followed this space tunnel out of the sword doctrine trial tower. Emperor 13, Jian Wushuang greeted as he bowed slightly. With the great improvement in his understanding of the sword doctrine, Jian Wushuang felt completely different when he looked at Emperor 13 once again. Back then, he had not had a clue how powerful Emperor 13 was. He only knew he was extremely powerful. Now, he felt that Emperor 13 himself was a unique divine sword. The sword essence that he radiated made Jian Wushuang's heart throb. Even though my understanding of the sword doctrine has improved greatly, I am nothing compared to Emperor 13, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. He knew where he stood. He knew he still needed a lot of practice as his sword skills now were still not good enough for him to go against the Blood Emperor. When Emperor 13 fought Blood Emperor, he was under the restrictions of heaven and earth. He could only use a small portion of his sword skills. However, this little portion of his sword skills was already far superior to what Jian Wushuang had right now. How incredible were his sword skills when Emperor 13 was in his prime? Jian Wushuang could not imagine that. How many opponents did you defeat during the 1,000 years you were inside? Emperor 13 asked. While Jian Wushuang had been sparring opponents within the sword doctrine trial tower, Emperor 13 had been meditating and did not take note of what happened within the tower. I defeated 16, Jian Wushuang said. 16? Emperor 13 nodded his head in approval. He expected that Jian Wushuang could defeat around 13 or 14 opponents. Jian Wushuang had gone beyond his expectations and defeated 16. The opponents within the trail tower would become increasingly stronger, and it would be increasingly more difficult to defeat them. From the moment you defeat the first opponent, you are considered an amateur in the sword doctrine. If you can defeat the opponents, you will have reached the initial success. When you defeat 20, you will have reached the profound realm. You still have a lot to work on before you reach profound realm, as you have only managed to defeat 16 opponents, Emperor 13 said. I've only reached initial success. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had thought that the improvement he had over the 1,000 years was incredible enough. He had not expected that he had only reached initial success in his understanding of the sword doctrine. You will only reach the profound realm after defeating 20 opponents. What if you defeat 30, 50, or even 100 opponents? Jian Wushuang asked. You are still in the profound realm after defeating 30 opponents. You will only reach complete satisfactory for the sword doctrine after defeating 50 opponents. As for 100 opponents, you have exceeded the complete satisfactory for the sword doctrine and finally reached the sword doctrine realm. You can then be called an expert in sword doctrine, Emperor 13 said. Sword doctrine realm? Jian Wushuang frowned. From what Emperor 13 had said, there were realms that differentiated people of different levels of mastery of the sword doctrine. Jian Wushuang still had a lot of room to improve before he could reach the profound realm. Even if someone surpassed being complete satisfactory for sword doctrine and reached the sword doctrine realm, they would be considered an expert in sword doctrine, but not a top-tier one. Sword doctrine is really broad and profound. Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Of course. As for you now, you need to continuously accumulate experience to elevate your mastery of sword doctrine. Even the sword doctrine realm is a far-fetched concept for you in this era. However, initial success in sword doctrine is already enough for you to completely dominate everyone in this era, Emperor 13 said. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up in excitement. Jian Wushuang's mastery of sword doctrine was much better than it had been before. Aside from the experts from the ancient past, there would be no one within the eternal chaotic world with a greater understanding of sword doctrine. With his sword skill, the amount of divine power he had from the ultimate phase of the 7th step inverse cultivation and his understanding of rules of order, his fighting power was far greater than what it had been. He was so much more powerful that he himself had no idea how strong he actually was. However, he knew for sure that he could definitely beat Emperor Bai in a bat. Lord Emperor 13, thank you. Jian Wushuang thanked him gratefully. Both the heaven-suppressing monument or the sword doctrine trial tower had helped him greatly as his fighting power had skyrocketed. Both of these treasures belonged to Emperor 13. Both of these opportunities were given to him by Emperor 13. Furthermore, Emperor 13 had helped him twice before, and hence Jian Wushuang was extremely grateful. I have already given you your opportunities. You can leave now, Emperor 13 said coldly and indifferently. Jian Wushuang felt odd. It was true that Emperor 13 had given him opportunities and treasures to help him improve. However, why had he done this? Why did he give such amazing opportunities? What was he trying to achieve? Emperor 13 did not mention this at all. Just like he had said, he would not tell Jian Wushuang anything at all. When the time was right, Jian Wushuang would know everything. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. Before he had visited Emperor 13, he had many questions that he had wanted to ask and hoped for an answer from Emperor 13. Now, the number of questions he had only increased after what he had encountered within the head, seeing the bold man from the ancient display. However, he did not ask after seeing how cold Emperor 13 was towards him. Goodbye. Jian Wushuang bowed before leaving the way he came. Emperor 13 fell silent as he looked at Jian Wushuang as he slowly disappeared from his sight. He looked up at the bold man sitting there with a glint of uncertainty. There isn't much time left. I tried my best to help the little one. Now, it's up to him alone to reach your benchmark. Old man, I hope everything that you are trying to do is worth it. I hope this little man can achieve it. If not, my 7-star black sect. Emperor 13 clenched his fists tightly and said no more. Chapter 22:14 The Changes in the Lineage of Stars. Jian Wushuang returned the way he came. The various defensive mechanisms were not activated. Soon, Jian Wushuang was out of Chill Wind Valley. Sigh. Jian Wushuang heaved a deep sigh after he was back on the surface. He looked back at Chill Wind Valley as he was still in shock after what he had seen. He knew that the owner of the head, the bold man, definitely had many incredible secrets. It was a pity that he was too weak to even have the right to know these secrets. During the 2,000 years that Jian Wushuang had been in the gigantic head, his overall fighting power had reached a completely new level and he was very pleased with it. Time to return, Jian Wushuang muttered. He flipped out a transmission token. Hall Master Yuan just transmitted a message. Hall Master Yuan, what's the matter? Jian Wushuang asked. It's nothing major. However, if you are free, you should go back and visit the lineage of stars, Hall Master Yuan said. Roger, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. He then returned to the Green Fire world. After Jian Wushuang moved the headquarters of the lineage of stars, it had been growing at an incredible rate given the excellent cultivating environment Green Fire world had. Lineage of stars had become even stronger and more powerful, even after many top-tier experts had been dying during the battle against the Three Emperors world. 30% of the territory within the Green Fire world was occupied by the different clans from the Eternal Chaotic world. Because of Jian Wushuang, Lineage of Stars had managed to secure a bigger territory compared to the other clans. A brilliant galaxy hovered in the air. The galaxy had completely recovered due to the abundance in spiritual influence of heaven and earth. The galaxy was even more brilliant and vast than it had been before. The power of the formation was even more powerful as well. Using special techniques, it could help out the disciples of the lineage of stars greatly. Jian Wushuang appeared within the brilliant galaxy. It has been a long time since I was here at the lineage of stars. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He usually remained within Wushuang City. He left the matters within the lineage of stars to Hall Master Yuan. After the great battle, he had been in slumber for 24,000 years, before he had gone to Chill Wind Valley. As Palace Master, Jian Wushuang had not come back to the lineage of stars for a very long time. The changes within the lineage of stars after all these years were huge. He could feel the difference when he stepped into the vast galaxy. The galaxy is completely different. The number of meta beasts born from the galaxy is far more than before. They also have a much greater effect on cultivators. Jian Wushuang smiled as his soul power spread out and covered the entire galaxy. He could sense that there were many meta beasts within the galaxy and they were very beneficial for the disciples when they cultivated. As of now, there were several disciples trying to capture the meta beasts. Jian Wushuang smiled as he walked towards the interior of the galaxy. Soon, he appeared within the headquarters of Lineage of Stars. After he had returned to the headquarters, he realized there were far more experts and disciples than there had been before. Both the numbers and quality of experts had increased greatly. Within the Lineage of Stars, the disciples were separated into 3 levels. Everyone started as a normal disciple before they were promoted to core disciple. Finally, they would be promoted to disciples of Star Palace. The number of disciples of Star Palace had increased as well. There were 10 disciples of Star Palace for each level in the realm of Universe God. Every one of them was a top-tier geniuses. For Phase 3 Universe God, every single disciple of Star Palace was enlightened to the power of Heaven Way. While Jian Wushuang was still a disciple of Star Palace, it would be difficult to find other disciples of Star Palace who were also enlightened to the power of Heaven Way. It seemed it's not as difficult for a Phase 3 Universe God to be enlightened to the power of Heaven Way now. This was due to the cultivating environment. After Jian Wushuang entered the headquarters of the Lineage of Stars, he roamed around within the Lineage of Stars instead of going to find Hall Master Yuan. Soon, a battle between disciples caught his attention. This battle occurred at one of the stars. The 2 people battling it out were both Phase 3 Universe Gods. One of them was a disciple of Star Palace, while the other was just a core disciple. This battle attracted the attention of many other disciples as they crowded around to watch. Jian Wushuang was within the crowd. Both senior brothers are very powerful. Senior brother Tian Yi and senior brother Chen Feng both are enlightened to the power of Heaven Wei. However, senior brother Chen Feng was enlightened for a long period of time. Furthermore, he is a disciple of the Star Palace and should be stronger. Look, senior brother Tian Yi is already suppressed. Even though senior brother Tian Yi is a top-tier core disciple, he still has work to do before he can beat senior brother Chen Feng. Jian Wushuang heard the surrounding chatter. He shook his head slightly and said, Tian Yi's sword skill is not so simple. He might win this battle. Jian Wushuang commented casually. Jian Wushuang could see that Tian Yi had yet to use all his sword skills considering his battle experience and how much more powerful he was. Right after he commented, several disciples looked over at Jian Wushuang. You think senior brother Chen Feng will lose? Are you kidding? That's right. Senior brother Chen Feng is a disciple of the Star Palace. Hey, who are you? Why have I never seen you before? Furthermore, what do you mean when you say senior brother Chen Feng will lose to senior brother Tian Yi? A teenage girl in purple clothes stared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was stunned. Right then, Tian Yi finally used all his sword skills. It was swift and decisive as he immediately turned the battle around. Within moments, he had defeated Chen Feng. He really won? The teenage girl in purple clothes was shocked as they had all expected Chen Feng to win. In the arena, Chen Feng looked at Tian Yi, enraged. Your sword skills, senior brother Chen Feng. Hall Master He Xiu mentored me personally. That is why I had a breakthrough in my sword skills. Otherwise, there would be no way I could beat you, Tian Yi said. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.